away. I don't know.
A battle in the heart of Alabama caught our attention. Coal miners in one community, they've been on strike now for months.
Working as long as 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, in some of the most dangerous conditions.
I really think that the labor movement is the single greatest force for democracy in the history of the United States.
The story of Alabama is a story of not just resilience, but of militancy.
I say no contract, you say no code. No contract, no contract.
If we ain't all free, ain't none of us free.
You're listening to Alabama's only union talk radio show, The Valley Labor Report, with Adam Keller and Jacob Morrison.
Hello, Tennessee Valley. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host and fellow agitator, live and on location from Anniston, Alabama, Adam Keller. I am broadcasting live online and on the radio from the heart of the Tennessee Valley, the Spice Radio studio in Huntsville, Alabama, while, like I said, Adam is live and on location in Anniston, Alabama. Going to be talking some more about that when we interview New Flyer workers from across the country about their union campaigns and contract wins. We are also going to be talking about the latest on the UAW issues, Tesla and Toyota news. All that and more on today's program. If you want to be part of the show today, we've got a phone number, and the line is open. You can call or text 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. You can also leave a voicemail throughout the week, and we might respond to it on the next program. If you haven't gotten enough of us by the time that we wrap up here on the radio, or if you just want to see what we're up to throughout the week, then you can find us anywhere you find anything online, in particular on our website, TVLR.fm. You can bookmark that page and subscribe to our newsletter to get new stuff from us in your inbox every week, and consistently, you'll get Last Week in Southern Labor and Boss Watch in your inbox every single week. You can also find us, of course, on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, and more places at the Valley Labor Report. Just a reminder, your support helps us stay on the air. Our largest single source of funding comes directly from our listeners. So if you want to make a one-time or recurring monthly donation, go to tvlr.fm/donate. You can also buy our merch at tvlr.fm/store or become a patron at patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. If you're a member of a union, then please do think about getting your local to sponsor the show. We could not do it without our union sponsors, and you can reach out to us for more details on that. And I will step in for Adam here and just add a disclaimer that any viewpoints or opinions expressed in this program belong solely to their author and do not necessarily represent any organization or sponsor. We welcome all of our listeners, whether you are on YouTube, Facebook, Unclaimed Mysteries Internet Radio, WVNN, WZZA, WHIV, or through your favorite podcasting app. We are proud to be part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network and encourage our listeners to check that out. As y'all know, we're not media professionals by a long shot, just some diehard unionists who believe that Alabama and the South's labor movement and working class deserve a bigger platform. We're hoping this project can make a difference on that front, and we could not do it without you. We want to thank everybody for tuning in, whether you're a loyal fan or a first-time listener, and appreciate you spending some time with us. So, first up, really quick announcement. The quick announcement is that next week, beginning on Friday at 9:30 a.m., we are going to be doing a 32-hour live stream, fundraising live stream, beginning on Friday, 9:30 a.m. We're going to stream for 32 hours to raise money for striking workers in the South. We're going to be raising money for BCTGM members, Bakery, Confectionery, Tobacco Workers, and Grain Millers International Union, Local 390G. Their members have been on strike in Memphis, Tennessee at International Fragrances and Flavors. They produce soy protein that is used in Nestle and Abbott products, among many other products. They have been on strike since June because their employer, amid record profits, record inflation, you know the drill, they came to the table asking for concessions. asking for cuts to their overtime benefits and asking for the elimination of paid breaks. The elimination of paid breaks. And that's all on top of lackluster wage increases that do not meet inflation, which would mean real wage cuts. And so they've been on strike since June. We want to help support them. So we're raising money for them. 32-hour live stream. You're going to be able to donate at tvlr.fm/strike fundraiser. That is tvlr.fm/strike fundraiser. We are also raising money for the mighty UAW members on strike at Mack Trucks in Florida. They are on strike, UAW members at Mack Trucks, because Mack has not produced a record contract among its record profits. They are seeking to increase the general wage raises from the last offer and eliminate tiers, among other things. So we are going to be raising money for those two groups of workers who are striking in the South mightily. The Mack Trucks folks have been on strike for a little over a month now. I'm going to be raising money for them. We're going to be bringing on several folks to talk to them, hopefully bring their audiences in to also raise money for us. We're going to be talking to folks including Sam Cedar from The Majority Report. He's confirmed to be joining us on the stream. The folks from Left Reckoning, Matt Leck and David Griscom, going to be joining. Kim Kelly, freelance labor journalist extraordinaire. Barry Eidlin, a labor historian, former staffer for the United Auto Workers. Bhaskar Sankara, president of The Nation magazine. Maximilian Alvarez, editor-in-chief of the Real News Network, among, of course, many others. We have 32 hours of content to fill, and reports from the picket line from the UAW and BCTGM. So you don't want to miss it. Set your alarms. Give yourself set a note in your calendar. Friday, November 10th at 9:30 a.m., we will begin a 32-hour live stream. tvlr.fm/strike fundraiser. So that's going to be happening next week. Looking forward to it. Let's go ahead and jump into Last Week in Southern Labor. Last Week in Southern Labor is a segment that we do every single week where we talk about what workers in the U.S. South and her colonies were up to this week, ending on Friday, November the 3rd. In new election filings, we had 1,223 workers at Mancall's office cleaning service in Guaynabo, Puerto Rico, filed for a union election with the Service Employees International Union, SEIU Local 1996. An additional 1,840 more maintenance workers, these with experts in San Juan, Puerto Rico, also filed for a union election with SEIU Local 1996. That's going to be a big win when SEIU puts those W's up on the board. 11 workers for video marketing company Whiteboard Geeks in Chesterfield, Virginia, filed for a union election with the International Alliance of Theatrical and Stage Employees, IATSE, Local 839, the Animation Guild of IATSE. 41 workers at Right of Virginia, a traffic control company in Verona, Virginia, filed for a union election with the Laborers International Union of North America, LIUNA, Local 202. 20 workers at Starbucks in Durham, North Carolina, filed for a union election with Starbucks Workers United. 18 workers at Royals Hot Chicken in Louisville, Kentucky, filed for a union election with the United Food and Commercial Workers, UFCW, Local 227. 20 workers at Dr. Pepper Keurig in Knoxville, Tennessee, filed for a union election with the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, Local 519. We had 2 election withdrawals last week. The General Drivers, Warehousemen, and Helpers Local Union Number 89, a Teamsters affiliate, withdrew their interest in representing the 46 workers at UPS Centennial Hub in Louisville, Kentucky, after initially showing majority support for the union. And the Teamsters Local 988 withdrew their petition for a union election to represent the 12 staffers at SEIU Texas in Houston, Texas. I tweeted about this yesterday because it seemed fishy to me, withdrawing a petition for a union election for union staff. Typically when something like that happens, that is the result of management retaliation. But this story had a much better end. It was it was withdrawn because SEIU Texas reached a voluntary recognition agreement with the staffers. So they are now officially represented by the Teamsters Local 988. In election results, we had 20 workers at Starbucks in Farmers Branch, Texas, voting in favor of unionization with Starbucks Workers United 14-2. 17 workers at Rare Bird Coffee Roasters in Falls Church, Virginia, voted in favor of unionization with SEIU's Mid-Atlantic Joint Board 11-4. 4 workers at Panelmatic St. Louis in Earth City, Missouri, voted in favor of unionization with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, IBEW, Local 3-1. 213 workers at Phoenix Paper Wycliffe in Wycliffe, Kentucky, voted against unionization with the United Steelworkers International Union, USW, 57-146. That is not a good result. 45 workers at Transdev in Lorton, Virginia, voted in favor of ousting their old union, the Office and Professional Employees International Union, OPEIU, in favor of a new independent union, the Independent Supervisors Union. 20 votes for the independent union, 2 votes for OPEIU, and 1 vote for no union at all. When we announced this filing, friend of the show Chris Townsend sent us some background information, and apparently this is a small unit that really should be part of the Amalgamated Transit Union, which represents hundreds of other Transdev employees. But at the time that these workers wanted to unionize, ATIU didn't want to organize them, so OPEIU did. But since they are a smaller unit, Transdev would try to pick them off and get the OPEIU unit to accept a concessionary contract and try to force the Amalgamated Transit Union into a similar agreement. And so now OPEIU has been raided multiple times in this shop with backing from company attorneys, and Chris had been able to help OPEIU stave off a raid in the past. But with Chris out of the picture at ATU, no longer in an official role there, and not having been asked for support, this new independent union won the election, and Chris suspects foul play from the company. A lot of drama for a small unit of workers, but we'll keep y'all updated as we know more. And for everyone else, Chris asked us to send along this message. Don't get decertified. Call Chris Townsend today. Settlements, grievances, and unfair labor practices. The National Labor Relations Board General Counsel is prosecuting DHL for unfair labor practice charges after completing an independent investigation prompted by the Teamsters International Union. The amended complaint includes allegations that DHL has surveilled workers discussing the union off the job site and interfered with efforts by DHL ramp and tug workers to unionize. Despite this interference, the ramp and tug workers voted overwhelmingly in April to join Teamsters Local 100. Other allegations include punishing and firing workers for engaging in union activity. A trial before a federal administrative law judge is set for November the 7th. The Machinists Union put out a message from their general counsel, Laura Ewan, about a recent Supreme Court ruling on religious accommodations. The message from the general counsel stems from the Supreme Court case stems from a letter carrier who was denied Sundays off, an accommodation that he requested for his religious practices. Previously, under the law, employers were able to deny religious accommodations if they created more than a, quote, de minimis hardship, which is obviously sounds like a low bar. And the Supreme Court in this case ruled unanimously that this bar was too low and that employers will now have to accommodate religious employees unless they could prove an undue hardship. Crucially, as Ewan points out, the court specifically stated that employers and unions did not have to ignore seniority rights when making these accommodations. So this sounds good all around to me. More accommodations for religious employees and more freedom from the job. Strikes and bargaining updates. First student bus operators who work for Buchanan County Schools in Missouri and represented by the Teamsters Local 955 voted unanimously to ratify their first supplemental agreement. The agreement includes 44% wage increases over 3-year life of the contract, employer contributions to a 401k, monthly attendance bonuses, improved safety protections, and the elimination of a 2-tier wage scale. 160 members of Teamsters Local 728 in Atlanta, Georgia ratified a new contract with Republic Services that won wage increases, improved paid time off policies, and the recognition of Juneteenth as a paid holiday. The staff of the country's largest union, the National Education Association, has released the results of a strike authorization vote, revealing 100% support for a strike if necessary. This comes after the workers, the members of the Association of Field Service Employees, AFSE, have reportedly been working for the National Education Association without a contract since 1 June 2023. Arby's workers in Kansas, Missouri marched on the boss and delivered a petition signed by a majority of the workers there calling for better pay, benefits, and working conditions, including a $5 an hour wage increase and paid time off and parental leave. They were accompanied by Missouri House Representative Eric Woods and others. They have given the company a 2-week deadline to respond. The workers are organizing with the Missouri Workers Center. And Memphis soy protein production workers with BCTGM Local 390G have been on strike since June. And like I said, next week we're going to be doing a 32-hour live stream to raise money for them. The UAW has a tentative agreement at each of the big 3 automakers with huge gains, including a 25% general wage increase over the life of the contract, ending tiers, bringing back COLA, and getting Stellantis to reopen a closed plant. That's what I call a job creator, folks, and that was the union, not the company. There's a lot more, but this is big news that is already having ramifications across the country and the industry, including right here in Alabama, where non-union Toyota announced immediate raises of 9.2% and a cut in the progression from 8 years to 4 years immediately after the UAW announced their contracts. These are big improvements, and non-union workers who want to get the rest of the gains that UAW members saw should unionize. 4,000 UAW members at Mack Trucks continue their strike, and as do Shangri-La dispensary workers with UFCW Local 655 in Columbia, Missouri, and Three Brothers Coffee workers with UFCW Local 1995 in Nashville. In policy, politics, and legislation, the Teamsters International Union has invited all declared presidential candidates to attend a town hall with rank-and-file members. I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully it will be televised. After Alabama kicked 22,000 people off of Medicaid in June, they kicked off another 28,000 in July, new data shows. Atmore News publisher and co-owner Sherry Digman and Don Fletcher, a reporter at the outlet, were arrested last week for allegedly printing grand jury secrets stemming from an Escambia County District Attorney's Office investigation into federal COVID-19 funds that were possibly improperly paid to 7 former Escambia County school system employees. Jimmy Williams, General President of the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, released a statement on Twitter regarding the situation in Gaza and Israel, saying, in part, a conflict of this magnitude cannot be fixed by bombs and bullets. The IUPAT is proud to join the labor movement across the globe in calling for an immediate end to hostilities and de-escalation of tensions across the region. International Paper will permanently close its containerboard mill in Orange, Texas. It will also permanently end production at 2 of its pulp machines, the number 20 machine in Riegelwood, North Carolina, and the number 4 machine in Pensacola, Florida. This will reduce production by 1.2 million tons annually and will result in 900 United Steelworkers jobs being lost. In internal union affairs, Olympia, Washington-based Thurston Lewis Mason Central Labor Council voted unanimously to pass a resolution stating that the Labor Council, quote, opposes in principle any union involvement in the production or transportation of weapons destined for Israel, and encouraged the National AFL-CIO to, quote, publicly support an immediate ceasefire and equal rights for Palestinians and Israelis. The National AFL-CIO rebuked the council and sent a note to all principal and secondary officers of state federations and labor councils, pointing to the policy that states that only the National Federation has the authority to create positions on issues of national or international importance. And that's going to be it for that segment this week. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We're going to go to a break, and when we return, we're going to be talking to a panel of New Flyer workers nationwide about union efforts at the company and their contracts. Stay right here, folks. You're listening to the Valley Labor Report. Benefit Architects has proudly supported union members and union-made products for over 35 years. If you are a federal employee and an AFGE member, you're eligible for hundreds of dollars in money-saving benefits, including group life insurance, dental insurance, and AFLAC insurance. Additionally, if you're a union member but don't work for the federal government, you can still qualify for several of these money-saving policies. So give Tate Hure a call at 256-215-6769 for details and to enroll. Again, that is Tate Hure at 256-215-6769.
In Alabama, more than 200,000 of our friends and family members are living without health care coverage. Often folks can't stay healthy enough even to keep their jobs. We can fix this. It's time for us to find a way to close the health care coverage gap so that people can remain at work. Let's make this a priority. Let's close this gap and cover Alabama. To learn more and how you can help, visit coveralabama.org.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtnj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services provided is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
Support for the Valley Labor Report comes from the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers Union. Learn more by visiting www.ifpte.org.
Attention union members, membership organizations, podcasters, or anyone with a payment processing need. The future is here, and your organization needs to be prepared by working with Unionly. With Unionly, your union or organization can take payments on a mobile device, eliminating processing fees, giving you a better price than other payment processing methods, while at the same time supporting a union-friendly business with a specialized skill set to meet your needs. Your members will thank you when they pay their dues at their convenience without waiting in line to deposit cash or check. Start preparing for the future today by calling 206-595-8631 or visiting unionly.io.
Are you looking for a better future, a career that can have you set for life, and to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself? If you are, then consider a skilled trades apprenticeship with the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades. The work of IUPAT is all around us, from the industrial painters who work on the bridges to drywall finishers, floor coverers, the glazers who install the glass in our skylines, and so much more. With an IUPAT apprenticeship, you earn while you learn and receive benefits while learning the trade, including a pension. We provide world-class education free of charge. That's right, no student debt. Our starting salaries for apprentices that graduate is above the national median salary with benefits for entire families. And you have the flexibility to take your trade wherever you'd like in the country to work. IUPAT District Council 77 covers our entire region, so give Adam Booth a call at 205-603-3142 for more information. Again, that phone number is 205-603-3142. Come build a better future with us today and join IUPAT.
I'm attorney Tommy Sinyard. When you've been injured and need help, you need a lawyer who's with you.
Sinyard Law. You need attorneys always available to take care of you. Sinyard Law.
And keep you in the loop. It's your case. You need to know what's happening.
Sinyard Law. And never a charge to meet with us to evaluate your case. Sinyard Law.
A new firm, but an old name. One that will stay with you every step of the way.
Sinyard Law, the name with proven results.
Support for this program is provided by the International Association for Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local Lodge 44 in Decatur, Alabama. Learn more at iamaw44.org.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
Labor creates all wealth should go to labor, and you are listening to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is Adam Keller. We appreciate you listening and appreciate everybody tuning in, including Joe and Mel on Facebook. Thanks for tuning in as always. We have a bunch of people on YouTube, about 30 folks watching and 20 likes, so let's get those numbers up. We have infinite content in the chat asking if we talked about the pharmacy walkouts last week. Indeed we did. Bingo Bango says, morning from Local 728. Good morning. Vonda, president of the Nashville Labor Council, says, hello, siblings. Hello. Appreciate it. Infinite Content says, I can talk to the Serfs and the Humanist Report to support the stream. Yeah, that would be great. I've already been in contact with Majority Report folks, but I don't really talk to the Serfs or the Humanist Report. So yeah, would be happy to have them if you can get them on the stream. Strom, $2 super chat. Solidarity from South Carolina. Thank you very much. So I mentioned at the top of the show that Adam is live and on location in Anniston, Alabama, and we're going to talk about why that is right now. So New Flyer is a Canadian-based multinational and the largest electric bus manufacturer in North America. They have plants across the United States, including in Minnesota, Kentucky, and right here in Alabama, in Anniston. New Flyer workers have been organizing with the Industrial Department of the Communication Workers of America, IUECWA, and we're excited to have a panel this morning of workers and organizers from this active union campaign. As Alabama's only union talk radio program, we here at the Valley Labor Report strive to uplift the labor movement and working people in the South, and we hope that this interview educates folks not just about this campaign, but about how and why workers are organizing in general, including right here in the South. So, Adam, talk to us about what you're doing down there in Anniston, and introduce the panel for us.
Hey y'all, it's a pleasure to be here in Anniston. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk with folks from New Flyer across the country, and talk with, more importantly, workers who are on the move, workers who are organizing. And so I am here in Anniston with Will Hunt, who is a worker here at New Flyer Anniston. Also, I'm here with Genesis, who is an organizer with CWA, and we'll be speaking a little bit more in a second. And then Jacob, if you want to let's go around, maybe let's see, Brenda, if you want to introduce yourself real quick, and then we'll go to Bob, and then Dion, and then Jacob, I think, has a question for us.
Yep.
Hi, my name is Brenda Yates. I work at the Shepherdsville plant. I live in Bardstown.
Bob.
Hi, my name is Bob. Yeah, my name is Bob Copleen. I work at New Flyer, St. Cloud, Minnesota. Currently still punched in, so keep it on the down low. I'll be punching out in about 5 minutes, but just want to let everybody know, I've been actually in and out of the union here in St. Cloud, and I realized just how it is to have one. And that's why I entered the unit, back into the unit. We were able to get back my service time. I did lose a couple of years of seniority, but that's because it's stuff we bargained for. So I didn't lose too much when I left. But I'm on the e-board here, did a couple contracts already. Looking forward to the third one next year. But it's important that all the facilities get treated equally. And I want Anniston to, for sure, because they are building from scratch just like we do, that they get the similar benefits and wages, because we're building the same $1 million bus. That's kind of where I'm at.
All right. Thanks for that, Bob.
Yeah, Dion, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Dion Knight. I'm at the Jamestown plant up in Jamestown, New York. Uh, Fairly new to the union, so hoping everything works out. It's just not an easy job right now.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. Well, thanks again to everyone for joining this morning. I'm going to start here in Anniston with a question for Genesis, and we're going to ask, what is a neutrality agreement, and is there one at New Flyer? How does this work? How does this help?
So yes, there is currently a new neutrality agreement at New Flyer in Anniston, and basically this agreement pretty much is simply an agreement that allows workers to form their union without fear, and all parties involved are neutral throughout the whole process. So workers are able to, form their union without retaliations from the employer. So that's basically what this neutrality agreement is for.
Awesome. And something that I wanted to get into, there's a neutrality agreement here, but we know typically companies often are anti-union, right? We know that a lot of times companies fight union drives really hard. And so I'm curious, I'll start with you, Genesis, and then we can go, around the panel and just why are companies so anti-union like that?
Well, we all know every employer at non-union jobs, the employer holds all the power. So they are able to come up with the guidelines and the work schedules. They are able to set their own guidelines and expectations, including like working hours, wages, how the working schedule looks. And it's pretty much not to bash the company or anything, but every worker deserves dignity, to be treated with dignity and respect. And most importantly, to work in a safe work environment, So with these companies, workers forming a union, they are allowed to have a voice and they are allowed to have input on these policies that the company comes up with. So every employer don't want to lose that power. They don't want the workers to have a say-so within those policies and those guidelines and whatever else they come up with. They want to have all the decision-making to themselves, So that's like I would say that's the main reason why some companies are anti-union and they fight back when workers are trying to form their union, because they don't want all the decision-making taken away from them.
Adam, if you don't mind me jumping in here, Genesis, I think that is exactly right. And it is, people talk about the money and people, the immediate thing that folks think about is that, companies don't want unions in there because they're going to have to pay their employees more money, generally speaking. And there's definitely something to that, but there is really a lot of it is just that they do not want their power over the employees to be challenged, their power to be able to make unilateral decisions without consequence and without pushback and without feedback or any input from the employees. They just like being able to do that, and you can't do that when your workers are organized and especially when you officially have a union and you have a contract. And so I really appreciate you saying that as an important reason, because that is something that non-union people especially, they don't really think about just how much power their employers have over them and how being part of a union will help give them some power and some say on the job. And, in this case, like you said at New Flyer, you've got a neutrality agreement. And so the hope is that there's not going to be that kind of anti-union campaign at New Flyer. But if and when, management pushes back at other companies, how do you think, how would you respond, or how would you encourage people to respond to that kind of, to anti-union campaigns?
Yeah, so everything the company does, it doesn't need a response back from the workers, So my biggest thing is I tell workers, find the most widely and deepest felt issue that every coworker, is dealing with, and you take that issue and you fight back, with the company with things like that. But like I stated, every every reaction from the company, we don't need to react back towards it. We just need to document and make sure that the company is not doing anything that they don't supposed to be doing with the workers, you know. So that's basically my biggest push with workers, is to take the problem that's most widely felt and most deeply felt amongst all your coworkers, and kind of use that to come up with some different tactics you could use to push back towards the company with.
So some folks on the Zoom, I'm interested in your answers to this question, and I'll kick it to Brenda, and anybody else that wants to jump in can after she's finished. But Brenda, what are some basic union rights and protections that you have learned about that you think it would be helpful for, you know, your colleagues, sisters and brothers in Anniston who are making this decision right now? What are some basic union rights and protections that you've learned about that you reckon these folks ought to know?
We have wine garden rights. We have the right to representation. You know, we don't have to go in front of management fearful of what they're going to say or what they're going to do without having somebody there to witness it and to have our back. That was the main thing. You know, they're always pulling somebody in the office for something. But once we started implementing our wine garden rights, that kind of slowed down a little bit.
Yeah, and just for the audience who doesn't know, you know, a lot of folks who are listening online, y'all probably know what wine garden rights are, but we're also on the radio, so we may have some people that are tuning in to this show for the first time. And just to explain what wine garden rights are, when you are in a unionized facility, you have the right under federal law, anytime your supervisor wants to have a meeting with you that you reasonably feel like could lead to your discipline or termination, you have the right to have union representation in that meeting. And that doesn't mean that if you've done something wrong, you're not going to be able to be disciplined or terminated or anything, but you're going to have somebody there who knows the contract, who knows how management is able to discipline, who knows all of this stuff, and who is able to, you know, keep management in check, make sure they're not violating the law, make sure they're not violating your contract. And that is a huge peace of mind for workers who are going through, potential illegitimate retaliation or discipline or termination, stuff like that. Bob, what are your thoughts?
So when we have been union as long as we have at our location, through all these years, we've actually got a lot of the respect of our cell leaders at this point, where everyone else is going to have growing pains because they're newer. A lot of stuff doesn't even go to grievance process anymore. We just talk it out on the floor. And we use that contract as, this is your number one, and we all have to abide by it. Most cases, they don't fight that. Every once in a while, somebody above that, someone could be like superintendent, someone above them that doesn't even know what's going on the floor. We'll be like, well, bring that guy in. We got to get him written up.
Right.
And in that case, then, you know, you go through the process of the investigations or whatever. In most cases, they find out they're wrong, and then we end up winning. And when we win, it's like, it's a big win because we usually get people like personal day, personal time, personal couple hours off. So if they were wrong to say 2 hours of overtime when they shouldn't have been even on the list, we fight to get back 2 hours of their life. So 2 hours of personal time is a win. But at this point in St. Cloud, things work out pretty well when we just talk it out on the floor before we even get to the grievance process or whatever.
Yeah. Dion, what about you? What are some basic union rights and protections that you think that folks down in Anniston and folks in Anniston and folks anywhere who are not in a union environment ought to know about?
Well, I agree with Brenda. The protection of having somebody in meetings with you when they call you in. When the union started, I got called in for smaller things. They had a problem with me working out during my breaks, doing push-ups and things. They said it was a safety issue, but I expressed myself during an open meeting when I shouldn't. But when they called me in the back, they came with all three bosses, and I kind of felt more attacked. I'm looking and there's nobody there to have my back in, and I appreciate the fact that now that at least somebody else there to agree with me or disagree with me. But it's nice to have somebody in the room with you when you're under the gun.
Right. Will, I know that this is the first, I believe this is the first public announcement of the union campaign at Anniston, at New Flyer in Anniston. But y'all have been working inside of the plant for weeks, maybe months now. I'm not totally sure, educating people about this kind of stuff. How do you feel like this information that all of your coworkers at New Flyer across the country are talking about? Do you feel like this information has kind of reached a lot of your coworkers down in Anniston?
Yeah. I think we've been trying really hard to make sure that everyone's as educated as possible in the plant. We just want to dispel any fear people would have. So we've been trying really hard to make sure everyone knows rights, what you can and can't do, everything. So the pulse down there for it is all really good now. People are really, really supportive of all of it because of that.
That's great. That's great to hear. And we're talking about union, and for those just tuning in on the radio, you're listening to the Valley Labor Report. We've got a panel of New Flyer workers nationwide, including New Flyer workers who are forming a union in Anniston, Alabama right now, talking about the unionization process and collective bargaining and contracts and stuff like that. And talking about that, people think that the union is like a third party. And so in this case, they would think that the IUE-CWA is a separate entity that is coming in, and you're gonna vote the union in, and it's this third party that's gonna do stuff on your behalf. But we know, as union members and as union organizers, that this is not really the case. that workers are organizing themselves, and workers are the union, and staying engaged is important to forming and maintaining a strong and fighting union. Bob, can you talk to us about the importance of that?
You may be muted, Bob.
Is Bob muted? I think he's muted. Bob, I think you're talking and you are muted.
There we go. I think we're starting to hear you there.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Because I was busy driving. What was the question again?
Yeah, the question was that we're talking about union representation, and a lot of people think that the union is like the third party. It's like a third party that comes in and does stuff for the workers. And we know that the workers are the union, and that the workers are organizing themselves, and that having workers engaged is important in the process of creating and maintaining a real kind of fighting union. And I was wondering if you could talk to us about the importance of that, the importance of the members, of the workers being the union.
Yeah, it's kind of like that picture you see where there's like one fish, and that's the boss, and then you have like a couple of small fish that are getting yelled at. But then when they all come together and they make one giant fish, the whole school of fish, you have the power in that moment through numbers. And so arguing with your boss just one-on-one isn't going to get you anywhere. But if you got 50 people behind you, he's more apt to listen and listen to reason. And that's when you kind of say, hey, this is against the contract. What are you doing, man? I tell everyone a lot of times, you have to be unified, even if you have differences in those moments, or you ain't going to get anywhere. And believe me, the boss will remember every moment that you're not unified and try to make that happen again. He'll try to corner you, and that's why it's important to have everyone at one text message away when you do like a a movement where everyone just comes and gathers all at once in front of the production office. Hey, you just wronged Jimmy. We're here to make sure that you guys, do it right and make him full again. And when they see all the sheer numbers in front of the production office, they're like, "Oh, wow, we really messed up." It's not like a membership at the gym. You have to put in the effort and work out. You don't just pay and get buff. It don't work that way. You have to put in the effort. And so I tell a lot of people, you got to put in the effort. If it's even just being one of the mobilizers to tell everyone what's going on, if it's coming to the union meetings and being informed, that's all important stuff you need to do. It's like once a month, you come in, you hear what's going on with the union dues, you hear what's going on with our local, you hear what's going on with our bosses. But you got to get involved. You can't just sit on the outside, on the outskirts, and think you're going to get all the information, because you're not.
Yeah, that is my least favorite part about working out, is that you have to do it. But I enjoy the metaphorical working out of union participation a lot more. And Brenda, y'all just formed your union over there in Shepherdsville, Kentucky. Can you talk to us about about how important it was to show solidarity during the unionization process and being active?
Oh yeah. We've had some really gung ho anti all the way. So it's been a battle. It's been a real battle. But the more that we speak to people and the more that we get the truth out there of what the union is actually there for, then more people are understanding that, hey, this is for me. This is to help me, not just them, but it's all of us. It's everybody. And it definitely, it takes a lot of participation to get people motivated. It really does.
Yes, absolutely. Dion, what about y'all? Y'all recently formed your union up in Jamestown, is my understanding. How important was that solidarity during the organization process?
It turned out to be very important. In the beginning, we had a lot of people that were afraid and they didn't want to go against the status. But the more some of the few that were pushing for the union, the more they pushed against us, the people on the outside were able to see, hey, the bosses aren't really on the up and up. They're really not our friends. We need to come together. Like I said, that they kind of did us a favor. The more they pushed, the more they revealed themselves, and it made other people come together. Once we come together, they stopped pushing. They stopped pushing, and the union was able to be formed. The fight still goes on, but like I said, being staying together, it helps a lot. It's a must.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're talking about union campaigns, and during union campaigns, a lot of times there's some amount of misinformation that comes from an anti-union perspective. Will, can you talk to us about some common misinformation that companies will use to deceive workers and try to get them to vote against becoming a union?
Yeah. A lot of misinformation that we've been getting specifically in Anniston is targeted directly at pay, dues. We've heard, quarter your pay every week's going to dues. We've heard 10%. We've heard 50%
of your pay.
Exactly. Wow. Yeah. We have heard absurd things. We've heard that, hey, every dime you give, we're in Anniston, Alabama. People are bringing politics into it. It's a lot of misconceptions. They're just really trying to hit where people around here would be most concerned. So definitely the money and the politics is what we've been hearing a lot here in Anniston. So just it's been mainly the money.
Yeah, well, so I want to talk. We're going to talk about. I'll ask some more of the panel about some other misinformation. But since you brought up those two things, Genesis, I wonder if you could go ahead and talk about, as the union staff, Can you talk to us about union dues and what they go for? You know, we heard there, Will said that there are some folks that think that a quarter of your salary is going to go to dues. Is that true, Genesis? Is that how much y'all's dues are?
Absolutely not. So yes, with union dues, first and foremost, union dues are 2.25%, which is like 1.3% of a typical full-time worker salary, which is monthly. And pretty much those dues do not come out. They do not. Let me repeat, they do not come out your paycheck until you have a contract that you approve with your employee and that you have voted on. So union dues do not start until you have a contract. And let's just say you have a 40-hour work week and I make $20. So on a monthly schedule, that's probably like $45 coming out my paycheck a month. And weekly, that's around like $11 or something. I mean, I spend that on McDonald's throughout the week, you know. So of course not. Union dues, it's not gonna be thousands of dollars. Like I just stated, making $20, I'm paying $45 a month for my union dues. And like I stated, you do not pay union dues until you have a contract that you approve with your employee. And some of those union dues, majority of those union dues go into a wide variety of things, such as programs and activities that you do within your local. They also go towards negotiating contracts. They pay the wages of people like me, staff, and union leaders, of course, to do the organizing work with you guys. Also, it goes towards legal representation, you know, having somebody in there to fight for you. But most importantly, majority of these dues go back into your local. So your local, majority of those dues go back into the local.
Right. Well, now, but Genesis, I think that you left out one thing, which is the $1 billion checks that you're writing to Joe Biden from union dues.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So politics. Yeah. It's really against the law for union dues to be used for politics. I mean, if we're talking about politics within your local union, then of course, you know, if you want to support somebody that's running for a steward position or something, by all means you can. But union dues do not go towards politics, such as like the president or, you know, outsiders that are running. So most definitely that is not true. You don't pay thousands of dollars of union dues, and they are not supported for politics.
Wow, that is bonkers. Because that's what I hear all the time, is that union dues, that we're just writing $1 billion checks to Joe Biden personally himself. But now I'm hearing that that's not true, and that actually that's against the law. So I'll and that's. That is actually the facts, is that it is against the law for union dues to be to go towards politics. And now unions do have PACs. They have political action committees that are separate kind of entities that you can donate to voluntarily, separate from your dues if you want to. But that's not a condition of membership, and it's totally voluntary. So yeah, your dues do not go to politics. That's a big old fat lie. But you know, what are some other misinformation that companies will talk about to try to dissuade people from voting to unionize? Deanna, do you have any other things that you've heard commonly?
No, they when we got started, they didn't really give out too much misinformation. I think our most information wasn't from the company. It was from people that didn't want to unionize, that had been in unions before, their experiences, their bad experiences, and they shared those. And some of them, they found their followers. But yeah, not so much from the company, but from others that just don't want to be part of a union. They've been the biggest hindrance for us.
Brenda, what about in Shepherdsville?
Yeah, it's basically the same. A lot of ours has been about politics and about the money. And then, of course, you know, you have older employees that are like, well, you know, I've been in a union and they didn't do nothing for me. And I look at them, I'm like, yeah, but this is our union. We're going to make it what we want it to be. And if you're a part of it, then you get to say so in and how you want this one to run. So
right.
maybe that would make things a little better for you. And that's turned a lot of people around, but there's still some of them, they're just stuck in their ways, and unions are bad. Doesn't matter. Unions are bad.
Yep, that's unfortunately something that you'll come across the country, including here in the South. And talking about union dues again, folks think about okay, well, so maybe Genesis. Okay, I'm not writing $1,000 checks to the union, and maybe the union is not writing $1 million checks to Joe Brandon. Okay, but you're taking a 1% of my paycheck. That's still less money than I had before the union came in. And so is that the case, Genesis? Is there's no raises or anything like that? Talk to us about the union difference.
Yeah, so pretty much that would be the case, if, of course, you're not a unionized job, but most companies are either unionized or not unionized. And that determines how the company, create policies and working conditions. And I will honestly say with a unionized workplace, workers are able to have a voice and a say-so within those policies. So they sit down with the company to create these guidelines and these policies together. But in a non-unionized factory, there's no say-so from workers. Whatever the company write, whatever the company comes up with, that's what it's going to be. And the workers don't have a voice to say anything. And the company is allowed to make changes throughout the year to that policy. And that's what a lot of workers are faced with. Companies are just, targeting certain people with certain things, showing favoritism and things of that sort. And that's why workers fight to form a union, to have a voice to stop things like that and stop the company from having so much power to make policies and guidelines that better fit them as an employer, instead of helping the employees have a better work life, a better work environment, better pay, better benefits, whatever the case may be that the workers are fighting for. So that's pretty much like the biggest union difference with employers, whether you're non-union or unionized. Like I stated, non-union, there's no say-so. Unionized, you have a right to sit with the big dogs and make those guidelines and those policies and whatever you want to, negotiate to put in your contract. You're able to have that voice to do that, being at a unionized workplace.
Right. And in particular, when folks are thinking about dues, union contracts are going to typically, almost always, come with rather large pay raises. Union workers make on average 14 to 20% more than non-union workers. And that doesn't even count all of the other benefits, the improved healthcare plans, retirement plans, time off, all of that just in wages, 10 to 14% more. And so that alone, you're getting 10 times back just in wages, typically 10 times back compared to what you pay in dues. And just to kind of illustrate that, Brenda, y'all recently won a raise over in Shepherdsville. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah. Every year that I've been there 4 years. Every year they have given out a cost of living assessment raise, the COLA. Well, once we started our contract, then all of a sudden we never gave out cost of living raises. We've just done wage assessments. That's all we've done. So the company tried to backpedal and say, no, y'all aren't getting that. We don't give those out. But yet it seemed awful funny that everybody in the cell got their raises because they weren't union eligible. So therefore they gave them a raise. So yeah, we fought from July 3rd until we just got our back pay last week on our last paycheck.
Wow. Explain that a little bit more. You got back pay for, explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, they gave us a 3.5% raise, which is what everybody at every New Flyer facility that I believe got back in July. And we didn't get it because they said, well, y'all are in bargaining, so we can't change anything. We can't do anything because of our neutrality agreement. Well, that right there was a breaking in the neutrality agreement because everybody gets that raise. We've gotten it for the last 4 years that I've worked there. Building's only been open for 5. So they held off on us, and we got the lawyers and they started fighting it.
That is awesome, being able to get back pay that y'all were owed because you were discriminated against for
yes
for being a union facility when everybody else got this raise, and so that's a pretty big deal. Bob, what about over in Minnesota? What kind of wage increases have y'all been able to see since unionization?
Wow. Since unionization, I mean, typically I've been there 18 years. On average, we got guaranteed raises every year, anywhere from like 2.5 to 3%. And that was pretty much the norm. This last contract, we really stuck it to them. What we seen was we were one of the lowest performers as far as getting people in the door, and we were losing people left and right that have been there 10, 15, 20 years. We gathered a lot of data when we bargained and said, hey, look at all these guys that are like leaving, and they're starting out at $25 an hour here and there. So we gave them that. We looked at the high inflation, and we kind of just throw it all in front of them. And then we also said on top of that, we have a 98% willing to go on strike, and we have enough funds to pay these people on day one. So we gathered up our locals' money for many, many years. And so now we're funded enough where if it's needed, we have money there set aside right away to go on strike and pay people up until the national kicks in their funds. That scared Winnipeg enough to basically say, well, we need to do something for recruitment. But then they put all the money on the front for recruitment. I'm like, wait a minute, these people are still leaving in droves, people 10, 15, 20-year employees. And they said, okay, well, let's move a little bit of this money for longevity. And we've never had that before. So now, and this would really be nice if Madison was able to get it, those long-term employees get an extra $1 every 5 years they work there. So I went from like $22.74 before the last contract 2 years ago. I'm making $30 an hour now. And that was from longevity. And that was from just negotiating and having that threat of a strike. If you actually look at the union difference, look at UPS and FedEx.
Right.
They're doing the same job, but one's getting crazy wages and benefits, and the other one, they hire contractors for $24 an hour.
Yeah.
That shows a lot right there. If you all are in it together and build your union up and have that little fund on the side, your money will help out in the long run, especially when you want to go on strike. It's a good weapon to have.
Absolutely. So, Adam, are you think we're good to go ahead and get to this portion about how to sign a union card, or is there something else that you wanted to make sure we got to?
No, I think this would be a great time to, we've talked a little bit about the campaigns and some of the things that you deal with in the process of a campaign, but let's just acknowledge the most important thing is someone actually has to say yes, right? And so, I wanted to just give a chance for Genesis and Will to kind of go over what would it look like if you are one of these workers and you want to say yes and you want to see a union in your facility. How do you actually do that? So I'm gonna give them a chance to demonstrate.
Hey, Genesis, I'm great.
So the time has came and it's time to sign your union card. Are you ready?
Sure am.
Okay, the first thing you're gonna do is scan this with your phone. Do you have any questions so far?
Not so far.
Okay.
Let's open it up.
All right, so they've got this piece of paper over there with a QR code right now that Will is scanning. What's coming up, Will?
So right here, I'm getting the digital card to fill out. It's first name, last name, all the information, cell, job title, everything. So.
And it's very important to fill out every piece of information that we're asking for. So you will fill out all that. And as well as if you're at work, I just seen you had problems connecting. So you can also do this outside of work. So at home, you can have this QR code, you can print it out, keep it in your wallet, flop it out if you want to, sign another coworker up. But you can also do this at home or at a restaurant, wherever you meet your friends, whatever the case may be. But you would fill out all this information and you would submit. You got to make sure you submit it. And you should receive an email authorization saying that you filled it out. And that's how you correctly do it. If you never received that email, that means something went wrong in the process of you filling it out. Okay, so you always want to just double back with an organizer or the coworker that you went through to sign up your union card and make sure that everything went through. So that's pretty much it.
Awesome.
How are you feeling?
I've been waiting a long time to do this.
That's great. That's awesome.
So Will has Will completed it?
Will is completing his official membership here, and so that's a pretty exciting thing, I think, to have on the Valley Labor Report, to have someone actually sign their card live on the air right here in Alabama.
Congratulations.
So there we go. We've got a new member here in Anniston, Alabama. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah,
brothers. All right. Well, Will, congratulations on signing your authorization card. And look forward to many, 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 many more people at New Flyer and Anniston signing those authorization cards.
Definitely looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Jacob, did you have anything else? Or did you want me to go ahead and kind of wrap things up this morning?
Yeah, you can
All
go
right.
ahead.
So,
yeah,
I just wanted to thank each of you for your time this morning, and more importantly, for your organizing work to improve the lives of your fellow workers. I'm really proud that I've gotten to know some folks here in Anniston this summer working on the campaign with Jobs to Move America. Like Jacob, I'm looking forward to your continued success. I know those of you on this panel don't necessarily know me. I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a Southerner born and bred, and I'm a union man through and through. And I've spent the last decade trying to build the labor movement here in Alabama because I know the power we have as everyday working people when we come together and unite around our common interest. I know the advocacy, the benefits, and the protections of a union can make our lives better. We all want to be treated with respect. We all want to be compensated fairly so we can provide for our families. We all want to come home safely and spend time with our families. We all want to take care of our health, and we all want to retire with dignity. We all want a voice on the job where we spend so much of our time. And when there are issues on the job, we all want folks to have our backs. So that's why I know when the New Flyer Anniston workers join together, you can and will win this union. You can and will win a strong contract. You can and will improve your lives and ultimately the lives of your families and community. So I'm wishing y'all much success as the campaign unfolds. With love and solidarity, Adam Keller.
Adam, thanks for that. Bob, Dion, Brenda, Will, Genesis, thank you for your time on this panel of New Flyer employees, talking about New Flyer employees and Genesis as a CWA staffer, talking about unionization, collective bargaining, contracts, and wrapping it up with a authorization card signing from Will over in Anniston, Alabama. Appreciate everybody's time. We're going to go ahead and head to a break, and we'll be right back wrapping it up.
In Alabama, more than 200,000 of our friends and neighbors are living without health care coverage. Often folks can't stay healthy enough to keep their jobs. We need to fix this. Let's close the health care coverage gap. To learn more, visit coveralabama.org.
Support for this program also comes from the Iron Workers, Local 477. So if you are looking for contractors with lower than average EMR and TRIR, they tell me that if you need to know what those mean, then you will. Or if you need to supplement a workforce at any level for any amount of time, short or long term, if you need iron workers that come trained and certified at no extra cost, or if you need workers from superintendent down to general laborer, and you're looking to start work on a project, or you're unhappy with your current contractor situation, you need to call my friend Jeb Miles with the Iron Workers Local 477. They only work with the best in the business, vetted contractors, and can do all kinds of jobs from roofing to steel and bridge erection, from welding to heavy rigging, from structural repairs to machinery alignment, and much more. They supply manpower on 4 of the 5 largest projects in North Alabama, so you know they're legit. If you need good quality, safe, efficient, diligent, and knowledgeable workers on your job, then you need the Iron Workers Local 477. Call Jeb Miles at 256-383-3334 or via email at local477@bellsouth.net, and make sure you tell them that you heard about them on the Valley Labor Report.
We're the nurses, firefighters, and claims representatives that help keep our government services running. We respond to natural disasters. We care for our nation's veterans, and we investigate discrimination in the workplace. We are federal and D.C. government workers, and we are proud to serve the American people. Working in more than 70 agencies across the government, we know we can fulfill our mission because our union has our back. Learn more at afge.org. Paid for by the American Federation of Government Employees, AFL-CIO.
The Laborers International Union of North America, Local 366, is proudly recruiting North Alabama workers to work construction and nuclear plant maintenance. If you're interested, please contact Donna at their training center to start the process. That phone number is 256-415-7452. Again, that phone number is 256-415-7452. No experience is needed. Free training is offered, but you must be able to pass a background check and a drug test. Local hiring that grows our community with good-paying jobs that have benefits is their mission. Live better, work union, Local 366, feel the power.
Support for this program also comes from the Mid-South Council of Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union. Learn more at rwdsu.info.
I'm Attorney Tommy Sinyard. When you've been injured and need help, you need a lawyer who's with you.
Sinyard Law. You need attorneys always available to take care of you. Sinyard Law.
And keep you in the loop. It's your case. You need to know what's happening.
Sinyard Law. And never a charge to meet with us to evaluate your case. Sinyard Law.
A new firm, but an old name. One that will stay with you every step of the way.
Sinyard Law. The name with proven results.
As labor union members, we face our share of challenges in the workplace. But today, I want to talk about a different kind of challenge, the climate crisis. We've all seen the fury of Mother Nature, the storms that can turn lives upside down in an instant. That's why Hometown Action is launching our Climate Protection Project. We're heading out to 10 rural communities, listening to local folks, and taking action with them to protect communities impacted by climate disasters. And we need you, our union brothers and sisters, to join us. Together, we'll make a difference. Our strength on the job is undeniable, and now it's time to put that strength to work for the planet. Let's protect our communities, our families, and our future. Visit hometownaction.org today and sign up to volunteer for the Climate Protection Canvas.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell. How the good old union has come in here to dwell.
Alabama's only union talk radio show. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, broadcasting from the Spice Radio studio in Huntsville, Alabama. We just wrapped up a panel of New Flyer workers from across the country talking about unions, their union campaigns, collective bargaining, and their contracts. Really appreciated their time. We had a lot of conversation in the chat. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We've got about 40 people watching us on YouTube now and only 26 likes. Let's hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. On YouTube, Redness says, thank you, Valley Labor, from the Teamsters for a Democratic Union convention in Chicago. Very cool that we've got listeners up there. Jared says, good morning from Local 27 IFPTE, the union representing NASA employees in Huntsville. Appreciate that. William Pig says, Local 1853 UAW GM in the house, Spring Hill Manufacturing, Tennessee. Glad to have you tuning in. Will says, from 1853, something about unions that are important when we were talking about, some union rights that often go underappreciated. Will mentioned that, reiterated that employers are not allowed to make unilateral changes without input from the workers. That's really good. He also mentioned that unions promote good leadership even within the company, and this is a good point, because supervisors who can work well with union workers promote a happier and less confrontational work environment, and that is absolutely true. So that's a good That's a good point. Will continues, they've forgotten how the lead men and women that threats are not necessary if you've got good leaders, and unions promote leaders even within the company. So that's great. On the dues question, Free American 2020 said, my boss never cared how much money I gave to charity, that I hunted, that I had a boat. That's a good. That's really. That's a good contribution there, talking about, bosses are always saying, oh, you'll spend so much in dues if you have a union, but they're never concerned about how much money you donate to your church or how much money you spend on hunting, all that kind of stuff. So really appreciate that. Local Iron Poppy says on YouTube, joining or forming a union is the most patriotic thing to support the United States of America, especially at this point in our history. Agree with that. Eric Williams, talking about the misinformation, says that sounds like Aerojet rocketdyne in Huntsville, Alabama. Y'all will remember our reporting on that campaign. Ended in a loss for the union, unfortunately. And Eric was one of the employees leading the campaign, so we appreciate that. Notary says, oh crap, QR codes for organizing. Man, it's been a minute. Notary may be an older fellow, not used to QR codes for organizing, but indeed, unions have come a long way. Our Longhorn says, go Will, we support New Flyer workers. Indeed, absolutely. Really happy about that. Jared, president of local IFPTE, says, congratulations on signing your union card. Will talks about union dues. I'm UAW GM, and our dues are a pittance compared to what we get from them. And to illustrate that, he said, my insurance premium are paid by the company, and last year for a single person, that was $15,000 a year. That is 15 times higher than my union dues for that entire year. That paid insurance premiums was negotiated by my union, not because my company gives a flying crap about me or the membership. And that's absolutely the case. LU Local 6645 GM, thank you for tuning in, LU. Really appreciate it. Had also some good conversation on in the Facebook chat.
I was just about to mention that.
Yeah. Hayden says, good morning, everybody, especially to our new and future union siblings at New Flyer. Indeed. Este says, union does make sure workers' voices are heard. Yep. That's really important. Mel says, reiterates that the dues money comes back tenfold in wages and benefits. I think probably it's more than that, actually. Greg says, good morning and hello to all my union brothers and sisters. Good stuff. Greg says, I think the importance of workplace safety has gone largely ignored. Organized labor has been the reason for industrial investments in workplace safety. And that's another really important thing that we have talked about. But you can never talk about too much that union workplaces are significantly and measurably safer than non-union workplaces. Less fatalities, less injuries, really good stuff. So appreciate all of those contributions in the chat. We will wrap up with Boss Watch. Boss Watch is a segment that we do every single week where we talk about what bosses were up to in the U.S. South and her colonies. Over in Texas, the U.S. Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division found Allendale Lawn and Landscape Incorporated violated the Fair Labor Standards Act by failing to pay 35 workers time and a half of the regular rate of pay for hours over 40 in a work week. The division also discovered the employer deducted a full hour of lunch every day, even though workers routinely only took a 45-minute lunch break. In addition, the division found the employer violated record-keeping provisions of federal labor law. After the investigation, the Department of Labor recovered $57,000 in stolen wages and $57,000 in liquidated damages to 35 workers, 10 of whom have yet to be located for payment. Workers who may be owed back wages for this or any other case can get more information at the Wage and Hour Division's Workers Owed Wages website. Over in Georgia, federal workplace safety investigators have determined a construction contractor could have prevented a 34-year-old steel worker from suffering fatal injuries after a 60-foot fall at a Hyundai electric car plant in Elabel by following legally required safety procedures. A U.S. Department of Labor Occupational Safety and Health Administration investigation into the April 2023 incident found that workers employed by Eastern Constructors Incorporated had been guiding an I-beam in place atop the plant's paint building when the fall occurred. One worker walking along the top of the building's upper frame lost his balance and fell, resulting in the sharp edge of the structure cutting his safety line. Despite efforts of emergency personnel who arrived soon after, the worker died at the scene. OSHA determined that Eastern Constructors Incorporated failed to ensure workers were provided fall arrest equipment that was appropriate for the work conditions and capable of resisting sharp edges, which exposed employees to fall hazards. The company also exposed employees to fall hazards by not taking worn and damaged fall arrest systems out of service. OSHA cited Eastern Constructors Incorporated for one willful and one serious violation and proposed $160,000 in penalties. For the company's plain indifference and willful violation, the agency has placed Eastern Constructors in OSHA's Severe Violator Enforcement Program. This is in part because since 2016, Eastern Constructors Incorporated has been inspected in response to 4 other worker fatalities. This company is killing about one person a year almost. These inspections resulted in serious and willful violations for hazards related to steel erection, including fall protection. Eastern Constructors has 15 business days from receipt of these citations to comply, request an informal conference with OSHA, or contest the findings. Over in Florida, the U.S. Department of Labor has entered into a conciliation agreement with a global distributor of inventory solutions for aerospace original equipment manufacturers to resolve allegations of hiring discrimination affecting more than 100 black and white job applicants at a Doral work site. The agreement follows a routine compliance review by the department's Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs that found from August 23, 2016 to August 23, 2018, KLX Incorporated allegedly discriminated against 113 black and 16 white applicants for Material Handler 1 positions. The agency determined the actions violated executive orders, which forbids federal contractors from discriminating in employment. To resolve the allegations, Boeing Distribution Services, which acquired KLX in October of 2018 and did not own KLX during the time frame reviewed, entered into an early resolution conciliation agreement in which the employer will pay $400,000 in back wages and interest to the affected job applicants, ensure its selection process, personnel practices, and hiring policies are free from discrimination, and make certain its record-keeping methods meet legal requirements. Boeing will also offer jobs to 11 black and white affected applicants as positions become available. And we have several dishonorable mentions this month. And remember, for everything that we talk about during Boss Watch, these are only instances in which the bosses have been caught. And we can obviously imagine that bosses are not caught a significant portion of the time, because for them to be caught, somebody would have to go to the authorities and report them, generally speaking, and the people who would be most likely to know about the law breaking by employers are the employees, who rightfully fear retaliation much of the time. So, in dishonorable mentions, the U.S. Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division investigators found the owner of a Madison, Tennessee Subway restaurant kept a portion of the employees' earned credit card tips illegally. Investigators also learned that J. and Krupa Incorporated, which owned the Subway franchise, employed 2 minor-aged employees, but failed to have records that verified their birth dates. The division recovered $16,000 in back wages and liquidated damages for 24 workers. Kentucky furniture manufacturer National Office Furniture Incorporated has entered into an agreement with the U.S. Department of Labor in which the employer will pay $132,000 in back wages and interest to 201 applicants for product assembly positions to resolve alleged hiring discrimination at its Danville location. U.S. Department of Labor Wage and Hour Division investigators found that the operator of 4 Louisville, Kentucky coffee shops permitted 2 managers to take a portion of servers' tips. The Department of Labor recovered $72,000 for 34 workers. On August 9th of 2023, the U.S. Department of Labor's Occupational Safety and Health Administration finished an investigation that found Braden Roofing willfully exposed employees to fall hazards by allowing them to work on a 10-foot-high roof without fall protection at a Jacksonville worksite. The agency also cited the company with a serious violation for not making sure that ladder rails extended above the roof's upper landing surface. The agency proposed penalties of $72,000. The U.S. Department of Labor announced last week that its Mine Safety and Health Administration completed impact inspections at 9 mines in 7 states in September of 2023, issuing 123 violations. Of the 123 violations identified by MSHA in September, 17 were evaluated as serious and significant. So that is going to be it for the show today. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Just a reminder, we've got a whole second half of the program where we're going to go another hour and a half. We're going to be talking about what happened with the UAW, the latest updates on the UAW situation. And then after we finish those updates, we're going to have a conservative radio host join us, Michael Yaffe. Those of you who are listening on WVNN will recognize him. He is going to come to us and explain why it is bad, actually, that UAW members at Big 3 locations across the country and non-union Toyota workers right here in Alabama got a wage increase, among other benefits, with these contract negotiations. I'm sure he will have very, very convincing arguments and may turn me into an anti-union activist. So if you want to see that conversation, find us on YouTube and Facebook, The Valley Labor Report, and we'll be talking to Michael Yaffe here soon. We have Labor Notes. Want to mention that they do a series of online trainings every single month. LaborNotes.org/events is where you can find what they've got going on. Assertive grievance handling. They have a workshop on assertive grievance handling on November 15th. That is really good. What to do when your union breaks your heart is going to be on November 7th. Like I said, you can find out more at LaborNotes.org/events. Alabama Arise is going to have a People's Town Hall on Tuesday, November 14th, from 5:30 to 7 p.m. at the downtown Huntsville Library. The Southern Worker School is going to take place on November 10th and 10th to 12th, hosted by the Southern Workers Assembly in Charlotte, North Carolina. Check out our interview last week to learn more about that. The Green Party of Madison County is going to hold its November meeting on the evening of November 8th at the North Huntsville Public Library. Adam will be the guest speaker to talk about labor and the environment. Today, Saturday, November 4th, the Huntsville chapter of Citizens Climate Lobby will host a watch party at the South Huntsville Public Library from 11 to 4. Folks will be tuning in to the fall virtual conference called Grassroots Rising, leveling up in the climate fight. Alabama's going to be on America's Workforce Radio on Tuesday. Check that out. And don't forget our weekly series, Shop Talk, airing online Thursday mornings. With that, like I said, we've got a great overtime lined up for you. Find us online, Facebook, YouTube, The Valley Labor Report. If you don't find us online, we'll see you next week. Okay. We're off the radio. Appreciate everybody. Appreciate everybody saying, tuning in. Like I said, really appreciate it.
Don't miss us next weekend.
Don't miss us next week.
Live stream.
Yeah. Marathon live stream next weekend. Appreciate us getting the likes up to 40. Really appreciate that. So, yeah, we're going to take a break really quick, and then we're going to bring you the latest updates on the UAW situation. Don't go anywhere.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
go back. Just a sec. All right.
Folks, we're back. You're listening to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. This is Alabama's only union talk radio program, and we are now in overtime. That is the second half of the show where we are online only. We have freed ourselves from the shackles of the FCC censors, and where my trackpad has just broken.
Oh man!
And so I'm gonna have to.
Hey, one sec. I gotta fix it.
You got a what? Oh no, on my laptop. But so my trackpad is broken now, so I'm gonna have to use my phone for the notes. But that will be fine. Oh hey, you've got a mouse for me. But this laptop has been with me through thick and thin. There we go. Thank you. Oh, maybe I don't need to take it to the thing. I can just have a mouse. There we go. But this laptop, I got it when I was a senior in high school. So that's been like 8 years ago. I got this. So this is a nearly 10-year-old laptop.
Honorable service there.
Yeah, honorable service. But and she's gonna be able to continue going thanks to Ben. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I've got a quick story just to fill some time. I know, I believe it was Genesis and Bob were talking about how companies can change up your contract willy-nilly if you don't have one. If you're one of those right-to-work state people, and
right.
One of the big employers, one of the biggest employers in North Alabama, I won't name them directly, but a health employer in North Alabama, during the COVID pandemic, they decided to change how much notification you're supposed to give to leave in good standing, quote unquote, which, legally they can't be like, you can't quit, you legally have the right to quit at any moment. But they said over a month you had to tell them before you quit. And the problem with this is you'd say, well, it's a free market. You just go to the other hospital, you go to the other healthcare clinic, you go work for somebody else. But they own every major hospital north of Birmingham and south of Nashville. Yeah. So when you're dealing with a monopoly and they change something like that, it is really like, all right, well, if you want to work at any of these major facilities, make sure you give a month and a half's notice before you even just to give them the heads up,
Yeah. Does this unnamed healthcare provider who is it's very, I have no idea who this is.
Could it be?
It's you're being very, very good with your anonymity to this employer. But do they give 6 weeks of notice when they're going to fire somebody?
I don't believe that's required of them, and I never saw that during COVID. I don't think they were giving you the heads up anytime before that. But in the middle of the pandemic, when people literally, healthcare workers were dying of COVID, and many were retiring after COVID or during COVID because of the strain of the illness, they decided that it would be a good idea to pretty much keep people as long as they possibly could. That's crazy. I'm not sure if any of that was ever rolled back either, so that's a good question for the future bonkers. Here. And if you had a union contract, per se, I don't believe that would happen. That would be illegal. They'd have to negotiate with you even.
Probably. So we have, I think we've lost several people on YouTube to the UAW's live stream where they are going over the details of the GM tentative agreement. So we're really excited about that. I don't know if we'll be diving into the GM tentative agreement, but we've got the details for Stellantis and Ford already out, and we've got the highlights for GM. And so we're going to go over that because last week, the UAW announced a tentative agreement with every single one of the big three, and the agreement is very similar across all three companies. And so we're going to go over some of the highlights, and because they're very, very good. At all of the companies, every single employee will get, at minimum, an 11% raise and a $5,000 ratification bonus immediately. an 11% raise minimum. Huge. A 25% general wage increase over the life of the contract, which is bigger than all raises of the last 23 years combined. All of the raises from 2000 to 2022 are less than the wage gains in this one contract. So that's huge. And the expected general wage increase after COLA is going to be 33%. And the COLA formula that they got at all of these companies is the pre-2009 COLA formula that they gave up to help save these companies. So that's great, and we've talked about COLA before, and that basically just, you share the risk of inflation with the employer, not just the employee. The employee is not the only one taking the risk of COLA, of inflation. They also took down the progression to top rate. They cut the progression scale down from between 8 and 16 years, depending on which company you are at, to 3 years at all of the companies. So it's only going to take you 3 years to get you to the top rate now, if this contract is ratified. The starting wage is going to increase 67% over the course of the contract, from $18 an hour to $30 an hour. That's going to be the starting wage at each of the big three. Huge stuff. And now we're talking about, 4.5 years out, 2028, but still, $30 an hour is the starting wage. I think it's probably still going to be pretty good in 2028. Parts distribution center workers are going to get as much as a 100% raise. As much as a 100% raise, because they are going to be brought into the assembly plant pay scale, up from the second tier former parts distribution pay scale. So that is obviously going to be huge. They were able to significantly attack the problem of temporary and supplemental employees, they called this phenomenon permatemps. Permatemps is what they had at UAW facilities across.
Permatemp.
Yeah.
Oh.
So they would have people that were quote-unquote temporary employees working at these facilities for years. And when you're a temporary employee, you don't have, not only are you working at a lower wage, but you don't have the retirement plans, you don't have the same health care coverage, you don't have the same job protections and job security. And they would keep them on as quote-unquote temporary employees for years. And so this was a really big part of the negotiations. And at Stellantis specifically, they got immediate conversion of all supplemental employees, and going forward, supplemental employees will automatically be converted to permanent progression employees after only 9 months. So Stellantis will only be able to employ supplemental employees for 9 months before they will automatically be converted to permanent employees, and those 9 months will go towards the progression. And so this means that currently the lowest paid temporary employees, so the temporary employees who are the newest and have the lowest pay, like $15, who are making $15 an hour right now, by the end of this contract, they will get a 168% raise. They will go from making today $15 an hour to $42 an hour at Stellantis by 2028. And on top of that, they will have the retirement packages, the 100% employer-paid health care, and all of this kind of stuff. It's also important to point out that Stellantis came into this negotiation wanting to cut 5,000 more jobs after they had idled the Belvedere assembly plant, and which cut thousands of jobs itself. So Stellantis came into these negotiations wanting to cut 5,000 jobs. They left the negotiations with a commitment to add 5,000 jobs and to reopen the Belvedere assembly plant and add a new battery assembly plant at the Belvedere assembly. So huge increased investment, reopening a plant with new product commitment, a new battery plant, and a new Mopar hub, a new parts distribution center. That's all the new jobs, the job creation. The job creators at the UAW have created 5,000 jobs at Stellantis. And they also got an agreement from Stellantis and GM to have card check agreements at all of their EV joint ventures. And as soon as all of these, the employees, as soon as they get majority support, majority of cards signed at all of the EV plants and battery assemblies and battery production at GM and Stellantis, once they show majority support, those plants will immediately be brought under the master agreement, and they will get 75% of the top rate. They will make 75% of the top rate at these battery and EV production plant. And in 2028, the UAW's plan is to push the EV production wages and benefits up to bringing them 100% in line with the regular assembly production scale.
And I might point out something interesting. Toyota decided to give some raises out, interestingly enough.
Yeah, we'll be getting to
not
that.
unionized, but suddenly they're getting a benefit of someone else's union.
Yeah, exactly. At Stellantis, they got a 72 to 140% increase to the company contributions in the 401k. That's huge. And they also got this really cool program. They got confirmed for the employees the same car lease program that managers have. So now employees at Stellantis will have significantly the ability to get significantly discounted leases with no credit check. It will include registration and plates with 24/7 roadside assistance, and oil changes and regular maintenance will be included in the lease. And you can get a new vehicle every single year. So depending on what the price for those leases are going to be, that is like life-changing. And is going to be a huge deal and a huge win for these Stellantis employees to be able to actually drive the cars that they're making every day. So like I said, with EVs, GM and Stellantis have agreed to card check provisions, which will bring those plants into the master agreement after they show majority support. And Ford did not do that across the EV ventures except for at 2. So they agreed to have card check provisions and bring them under the master with majority support at 2 of their EV plants, but not all of them. And so UAW's President Shawn Fain has told Bloomberg that he anticipates a, quote, ugly fight in the campaign to unionize EV plants at Ford. So we'll see what happens there. And, all of this stuff is really, really big. There's a lot of, those are huge improvements and huge wage increases. And this is going to amount to the company spending a lot more on the employees. And so some industry analysts, like Shawn Fain said in the announcement of the Ford tentative agreement details, he said that, some industry analysts are saying that, this might endanger jobs. They might be incentivized to ship more production overseas. And that's why Shawn Fain was determined, and they were able to secure the right to strike over plant closings, outsourcing, and product commitment. So if any of these employers attempt to outsource jobs overseas or subcontract any of this work or decline to commit new product to plants, they can take their whole the whole thing offline. They can go on strike, and that's in the contract, and that is huge. That power to push for new product commitment at facilities, and so that gives them a lot of power to make sure that their jobs are secure. And they made it a point to end the contracts on April 30th, 2028, which means that the contract will be expired on May Day, 2028. And here is Shawn Fain explaining why he did that.
We went to each of the big three and proposed an expiration date of April 30th, 2028. We did this for several reasons. First, this allows us to strike on May Day, or International Workers' Day. May Day was born out of an intense struggle by workers in the United States to win an 8-hour day. That's a struggle that is just as relevant today as it was in 1889. Even though May Day has its roots here in the United States, it is widely celebrated by workers all over the world. It's more than just a day of commemoration. It's a call to action. We invite unions around the country to align your contract expirations with our own so that together we can begin to flex our collective muscles. If we're going to truly take on the billionaire class and rebuild the economy so that it starts to work for the benefit of the many and not the few, then it's important that we not only strike, but that we strike together.
So that is really important, really good stuff. And we've seen, some activists like on, activists on like Reddit and stuff try to organize quote unquote general strikes. And you can't make an online post calling for a general strike and expect it to happen. That's just not how it works. You've got to actually organize, maybe you should organize your own workplace before you start trying to organize a general strike. That's what you should do. Form a union in your workplace. But this May Day 2028 deadline is going to be the next best opportunity to actually organize towards something like a general strike in the United States that we have had in probably a century. So if you are somebody who is interested in seeing something like a general strike, then unionize your workplace, get a contract, and set the expiration date for April 30th, 2028. And that's how you can organize towards a general strike on May the 1st, 2028. And so he and Shawn Fain also talked about the difference that these negotiations and this contract campaign has made in his life and in the life of UAW members across the country and union members and non-union members across the country. And here's him talking about, what the UAW's logo means, what it used to mean to him and what it means to him now.
There was a time when it was hard to wear this wheel. Our union has been through some dark days, and like many of you, I walked a lonely path. What we have accomplished together has turned this wheel around. When I see that wheel, I no longer see a union on defense, in decline, or under threat. When I see that wheel, I see power. I see the future of the working class. I didn't do that. Chuck didn't do that. You, the membership, did that. The stand-up strike will go down in history as an inflection point for our union and for our movement. Just over 7 weeks ago, I asked you all if you had faith. I asked you if you were ready to move mountains. The members at Michigan Assembly Local 900, Chicago Assembly Local 551, and Kentucky Truck Local 862 heard the call.
So there we go. That's, really powerful stuff. And like you alluded to, Ben, the gains have not been limited to UAW members and union plants at the Big Three. We've seen Toyota right here in Alabama, right here in Huntsville. They've announced, and this is also nationwide, but right here in Huntsville, immediately they're going to be giving all of their production employees a 9.2% raise. It's not the 11% raise that UAW members are getting, but a 9.2% raise, and Toyota has cut their progression in half from 8 years to 4 years. So not only are you going to get at Toyota an immediate almost 10% raise, it's going to take you half as long to get to the top rate at Toyota than it did before the UAW strike at the Big Three. And so if you are working for Toyota and you want the rest of that 11% raise, and you want to take the progression scale from the 4 years at Toyota down to the union progression scale of 3 years at the Big Three automakers, contact the UAW today, uaw.org. And that's how you're going to get, and because the Toyota did not give these raises out of the goodness of their heart. In fact, they had already given 2 raises earlier in the year, and they typically do not give more than 1 or 2 raises in a year. So this is directly in response to the UAW's contract campaign at the big 3 automakers, and is only in response to that. It is not out of the goodness of their heart at Toyota that they're doing that. They're doing this to try to stave off a union campaign, because they know that if Toyota workers across the country unionize, that they will be able to get more than 9.2% right now and a 4-year progression scale. And so that's what you have to do if you're a Toyota worker. If you want to get the rest of that, more of that value that you're creating, the rest of the compensation that UAW members across the country are now getting, you've got to unionize. You've got to unionize. And this kind of stuff is also happening at Tesla, where Tesla has announced a second wage increase this year at its Berlin factory in Germany amid a union push from one of the auto unions there. And there's almost certainly going to be a wage increase at Tesla factories in the United States as a result of this contract that the UAW has negotiated with the big 3 automakers. And Josh Idelson in Bloomberg, a good labor reporter for Bloomberg, he wrote about this, saying that the UAW has before tried to organize the electric car leader and others. Fain says these efforts failed because of the union's corruption, coziness with bosses, and bad contracts. Fain's predecessors, Bob King and Dennis Williams, both met with Musk. But then in 2020, Williams pleaded guilty to embezzlement and racketeering. So not good, as they say. But Sean Fain, the union leader, says he sees no reason to get FaceTime with the Tesla CEO. I don't know what that would serve, he said. Maybe we'll meet at the bargaining table once we've organized. So this is really good news, not only for union auto workers, but for non-union auto workers across the country. We're seeing record wages, and it's, you know, this is the same thing that we've seen borne out by the data in any data. When you take a look at union density in an area, not only we know that on average union workers make more, but when union density is higher in a geographic region, that increases the wages of non-union workers as well. And so, you know, this has all been borne out, not just in the auto industry or in certain geographic sectors. It's been borne out across industries and across geographies. But, you know, I like to have, you know, debates or conversations with people that I don't agree with. And last week, or, you know, not just last week, over the course of this contract campaign, Michael Yaffe, a conservative radio host on WVNN, you can listen to him from 9 to 11, I believe, weekday mornings, 9 to 11. He has been, you know, he has been not very positive about this UAW campaign. He has been critiquing the push by some Republicans, to at least appear more labor friendly, critiquing the interest in walking on picket lines, Donald Trump's supposed, overture to UAW members by speaking at a non-union auto parts manufacturer to a largely non-union crowd. There was a very strange overture to union workers, but, nevertheless, that's what he billed it as. And, so Yaffe has been critical of this. And then when this deal was announced last week, he put out a segment on, and so he does kind of a similar thing that we do. He does the show, and then he releases clips, but not on YouTube. He just releases it on podcast platforms. And so he clipped one of his segments, and he titled it, "The UAW deal is a bad deal for America." And so, so I've listened to it. I'm not totally convinced by that argument, but I wanted to give him some time on this show to try to walk me through some of his thought process. And so we've got Michael Yaffe in the Zoom now. Michael, thank you for taking the time to talk to us this morning. I appreciate it.
Yeah, can you guys hear me, by the way?
Yes.
Sound okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. I didn't convince you, Jacob?
Yeah.
I thought maybe that one segment would have got you on board. Just convinced you completely. Dang.
Yeah, that's how,
I'll try better next time.
Yeah. Next time, I'm sure that the segment will convince me. But that's how I build it. We're gonna have a conversation, and maybe you'll turn me into an anti-union activist. But I don't know if you have. I don't know if you've been listening for the last 20 minutes or so. But we've been talking about the UAW deal, going over some of the details of the agreements, and you've heard the highlights: 25% wage increase over the 4.5 years of the contract, 33% once COLA is included is the estimate, 11% raise immediately. Starting wages are going to increase 67% from $18 an hour to $30 an hour. 3-year progression down from 8 years to 16 years. Second-tier workers are going to get as much as 100% raise. At Stellantis, the lowest paid supplemental employees are going to see a wage increase of 168% from making $15 an hour right now to making the top rate of $42 an hour in 2028. And then we've seen non-union automakers, particularly Toyota, answer this by also increasing wages. 9.2% raise for Toyota workers, and cutting their progression in half from 8 years to 4 years. And the UAW has created jobs. People say that that unions are not job creators, and they created jobs. Stellantis came to the table wanting to cut 5,000 jobs, and they left the negotiating table, creating 5,000 more jobs, opening the idled Belvedere assembly plant, committing to open a new parts distribution center, committing to a new battery plant that will be under the UAW's National Master Agreement. And so all of these things sound really good, not only to UAW members, but to the non-union workers in the auto sector as well. So tell me why why I'm wrong, why I'm not understanding the situation correctly.
Well, first, I do want to say, if I am a member of the union, yeah, obviously the workers feel like they got a pretty good deal here, and I don't blame them. For them individually. Yeah, it seems like a pretty good deal. But I mean, we've had a debate over unions in general, so we don't need to have that debate again. But when I say, is this good for America? I'm just not sure this kind of deal making with unions is good for the economy as a whole, is good for the country as a whole. And I'm not sure it's good for the companies, because I think the companies are eventually either going to have to cut costs and cut corners in their products, but I think eventually they're going to have to lay off people. I mean, I know you were talking about the striking, and they're going to strike if there are layoffs and plant closures, but eventually at some point, I think these costs are going to hit them. The chickens are going to have to come home to roost, so to speak, and that's going to put these companies in a tough position. And if the companies really aren't succeeding as much as they can, I don't know if that really is good for the American economy.
Well, I mean, the question is really, the value's being created. And the question is, who is it going to go to, right? Is it going to go to the workers who actually create the product, or is it going to go to people's, people who own stocks in the company on Wall Street? And this contract has shifted some of that, has really kind of shifted some of the percentage there. We saw like from 2019 to 2023 that shareholders received more money in dividends than UAW members did in wages. Like, that just sounds absurd to me, that you would be paying people, shareholders as a class, more than workers as a class. And that doesn't sound like a good deal for America, right? That all of this money is going to be concentrated at the top, and not being distributed, in the communities.
Well, one thing I do want to say is a lot of times when you're talking about dividends, when you're talking about stocks, you have a lot of mutual funds that are involved in this. So you have a lot of ordinary workers that have their 401ks kind of involved in this. So when the stocks do well for a company, that can help individual workers with 401ks in their retirement. But overall, it's not even so much that I disagree with the decision-making of companies in terms of, okay, maybe they should pay their workers a little more. I just don't like it, this collective way of doing it. I want the companies to do it because it's what's best for their company. And I just don't know, looking at now, it wasn't as bad as I thought. When they were asking for 32-hour work week, I was like, this seems like a little much to me. This seems like you're trying to transform the economy more than just help your individual workers. But I want the companies to be able to make that decision. I want them to say, okay, we have to make a profit to stay in business. And does this help us stay in business, or are they going to cut corners in the long run? I'm just not sure that's going to take. But I think a lot of this, frankly, I think these car companies feel like the government will bail them out if they get in trouble in the future.
Why do you think that the company should have sole discretion over these kind of stuff like wages and working conditions? And why is it that you think that companies will or should make the decision to pay the workers more out of, the kindness of their heart? I mean, we've seen that, like, that's just historically, like, not really borne out. I mean, automaking was not only like not a career when it, in the early in its early iterations, it was like a temporary job. They had, I mean, it was like Amazon is today, 100%, 150% turnover. People couldn't stay there because they'd get fired or they'd be injured or they'd leave. Coal mining was a very similar thing. It was not a career. It was something that people were actually coal miners were like the first independent contractors. They weren't even considered employees. And it was unions that changed that actually turned these jobs into like good career jobs. It wasn't out of the, the kindness of the company's hearts, right? So like, why do you think that's an incorrect analysis?
Well, and I will say, I'm not necessarily thinking like CEOs of companies do things out of the kindness of their hearts. I don't have any deals with any CEOs. There are some CEOs that definitely would not do that. I just tend to think the marketplace is the best way to kind of regulate this kind of stuff. So in order for a company to really succeed, especially against competition, they're going to have to make sure their companies run well. And it is true that sometimes, okay, they're going to have to cut costs for labor to compete, but there are other times where you go too much in the wrong direction and you just start losing your employees to a company that's going to pay them more because their product and services are doing well and the companies are doing well. I just tend to believe more in the marketplace as a whole than I do in terms of, well, they're doing it out of the benefit of their hearts. And I'm not saying that always looks perfect. I'm not saying it ever looks perfect. The free market's not perfect. I just think it's the best system the world has ever seen in terms of being able to regulate these kind of things. There's competition for labor. We see it right now with a lot of companies. They're competing for labor. You talked about how the unions are encouraging other companies to raise wages. I think it's a part of it, but I think, frankly, it's also they need the jobs. Toyota, Mazda plant here, they just need people. So you have competition for labor. So when you just dump a bunch of money in certain areas, you have to ask yourself, is that making the company more productive? Or is it just raising costs for everyone, raising inflation for everyone? And is it good for the company's bottom line as a whole, not just now, but in the future? And sometimes I worry about that when looking at these deals, where you're focused on what the workers get out of it, but is the company as a whole going to be doing better and going to be able to survive in the future out of this? Because even the union workers don't do well if the company goes under.
Right, and that's why the unions saved the auto companies during 2008. Right, because and that's another like super I think malicious mischaracterization of unions that we want to destroy the businesses that we work for, because with the UAW saved these businesses in large part. It was the UAW in cooperation with the taxpayer. The UAW took billions of dollars in losses, in cut wages, losing COLA, cuts to pensions, cuts to 401ks, healthcare, all of this kind of stuff. Huge losses to save these companies. And so, of course, unions and workers and the members are willing to make sacrifices when when there's actually a legitimate fiscal threat to the companies that we work for. But we see that the people at the top are not willing to do that. I mean, we see that the Ford CEO, GM, all of these people make hundreds of times more than the median worker at these places. And so, that seems like, why does nobody talk about is that good for the company? I mean, Toyota's CEO doesn't make $20-30 million a year. Toyota's CEO, I think, makes $1 or $2 million a year. So, like, why is there not conversations on, or why do you not have conversations about, is it good for the CEOs to be making this much money? Is it good for the shareholders to be making this much money instead of investing that money in new plants, or instead of investing in their workforce and rewarding them for continued employment, or, stuff like that? Why is that a good allocation of resources?
I'm not necessarily saying it is. I mean, I drive a Mazda, so I feel like maybe Mazda is doing something right. You talked about Toyota. Those plants aren't unionized, and yet their employees do pretty well compared to the CEO salary, like you just mentioned. So I think there is something to be said about, if you have companies acting badly, if you have CEOs acting badly, not allocating their resources right, the market can take care of that. Maybe that's the reason why Toyota does pretty well, because they understand how to manage their businesses better than Ford or GM. It's not even so much that I think that companies are automatically going to do the right thing. I just think the marketplace is better and competition is better at kind of regulating this stuff than collective strikes, collective bargaining, that we see that forces these companies into union contracts, not just for like temporary. It's not like just like a CEO who, okay, he's getting paid too much, we're going to fire him, pay the next one less. It's like permanent stuff here. And when the company doesn't do as well for a certain year, it's not like, okay, your wages are tied to that. You don't get a pay cut if the company's not making a profit that year. So that's my only argument here. It's more the process than defending companies. I'm not here necessarily to defend companies on an individual basis. I just tend to defend the free market, allowing these companies to make these decisions on their own.
Why do you not think that unions are a part of the free market, whatever that means?
Well, for one, I do think that you shouldn't be forced. That's why you have it here. It's sort of a collectivization thing, where it's like, okay, as a collective, all these employees strike. I think then if the companies want to, they should be able to fire them and hire new employees. But there are a lot of different regulations that kind of prevent that. So in terms of, do I think unions are going to go away?
Not really, actually. I mean, the national, unfortunately, I think it's unfortunate that that's not the case. I think that the state should very much encourage more, worker power. But the National Labor Relations Act, and it's insane that it's been interpreted this way, but the National Labor Relations Act does have a prohibition against firing striking workers. But it was very quick that the Supreme Court somehow, the supposedly originalist and textualist institution, said that, this law doesn't actually mean that, you can't get rid of striking workers. It means that you can't fire them, but you can permanently replace them, which is somehow different than firing them. And that is totally legal. It's called the McKay Doctrine. So it is actually legal to permanently replace striking workers. You can't say that it is firing them because somehow that's different. But functionally, employers can permanently replace and functionally fire employees who strike.
Okay, that's very interesting. I'll have to look more into the details of that. But yeah, I just tend to believe, and like I said, I am not someone who thinks my argument is going to win anytime soon. I know I'm an idealist, but I tend to believe that workers, if they want better, they should be able to negotiate their contracts on an individual basis instead of sort of this collective mindset that they force these companies to bend. And it seems good right now, but is that going to be profitable for the company as a whole? And when I saw some of the demands in the beginning of this, now it turns out maybe that was a negotiating tactic and they didn't get everything. I was a little bit concerned that I was like, okay, is this really about doing what's better for your union employees, or is this about like kind of transforming how our whole economy works? And the hourly wage thing was part of that, but there were other parts of that as well.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned the 32-hour work week, and that, that you thought that was bad. And I'm curious why that would be bad, because we are seeing, productivity increasing, and estimates that EV production is going to, estimates really do actually range. There's a lot of kind of people running around like alarmist about the labor cuts that will be necessary for EV. Like some estimates say that it's going to need 40% less labor to construct an EV vehicle. And, there are estimates on the other side that say that actually if you look at all of the construction that's needed to maintain an EV infrastructure and to build all these cars and all this stuff, you'll actually need more workers. But let's just even take it at face value that because there's less parts in an EV, that means that there's going to be 40% less labor. Why shouldn't we just keep the same amount of workers and have them work less instead of laying a bunch of people off and sending all of the excess profits to the top?
Well, I mean, it depends on what they think is best for their company. In terms of sending excess profits to the top, I mean, we could get into a whole conversation on whether having it in stocks is all just sending it to the top. You have a lot of different mutual funds, a lot of different people investing in these stocks that are dependent. Not all of those people are necessarily at the top. But in terms of the EVs, the EV, I have to say, just kind of on a side note, this is another example of I'm not sure the marketplace working, because a lot of that is heavily subsidized by the federal government. So that's like a whole nother thing. I don't know if we should be doing that. And that's part of what that's part of what encouraged the unions to do this in the first place, because they saw a lot of what the automakers were trying to do because of the green energy stuff being pushed by the federal government. But I just tend to think that the company should be able to decide those things. So if you have different people that are managing the company and they say, you know what, this is more productive to give them less hours, and they're more productive in that way, that's fine. But I just don't think that's what we're doing now. We're kind of like, well, they deserve this. We're going to collectively bargain and we're going to force your hand. And then in a couple of years, if that didn't end up turning out, well, it's like, too bad. There's no flexibility there once these contracts are kind of set in place, unless I'm wrong about that.
Well, no, I mean, contracts expire in contracts are typically between 3 and 5 years. This one is 4.5 years. But I mean, they're in events like 2008, 2009, when all this happened. I think it was mid-contract cycle. So when there are big disruptions, if both parties agree, there can be there are always provisions for emergency changes if they're needed. But this is exactly the same thing that people said with the 40-hour work week or with the 8-hour workday. And we've seen, that actually, the American worker is working more than we used to, I think, 20, 30 years ago, even as productivity has increased. And so all of those gains have gone, to the top. And you said that, and you said a couple of times that a lot of these stocks, some of it's held in retirement funds and mutual funds and all this kind of stuff. But, 80% of the stocks are owned by the top, like 10% of the population. So, even if some of us are going to benefit from this, the majority of people are not going to see the benefit of stock price increase or dividends and stuff like that. And so but why shouldn't we have a shorter work week as we're being more productive, the same as we did when we got the 40-hour work week? I mean, people do it and actually GM and Stellantis do this in Europe, where Germany and France have 35-hour work weeks, and they have plants over there producing vehicles. And so it's just kind of funny them saying that it's such an unreasonable thing, and they're doing almost the exact same thing in Germany and France over in Europe.
I mean, it's just hard for me to believe that it's really. I mean, your base argument is that we don't need 40 hours, that we're productive with 30 hours. I mean, would we be even more productive?
No,
40 hours?
No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that over the years, with automation and process improvements and all of this kind of stuff, the average worker is more productive than the average. So 1 hour of labor today produces like 1.5 widgets, where 1 hour of labor 30 years ago produced 1.2. Right, that's what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
And so I'm saying that we don't need the 40 hours, and in vast sectors of the economy, we could cut the work week to 32 hours a week, and then hire more workers and create more jobs and give everybody more free time to do what we want, and potentially, to start our own business. If we have more free time, we have more time to do entrepreneurial things, to do and stuff like this. And then there are actually arguments and studies that I think are very persuasive, that show that in white collar environments, that actually when you shorten the work week, you do get more productive. Actually, it doesn't translate to production and trades and stuff like that, I think, for obvious reasons. But there have been multiple studies that I've found persuasive that show that if you've got a desk job, actually, if you only work 32 hours a week, you do get more done than you would in 40 hours a week, where you spend that 8 hours pretending you're doing something.
Well, and I guess my whole point is that in terms of those specific businesses, and you admitted it's more white collar jobs, maybe they look at the studies and they try that out and they're like, this actually has made us more productive. But you can also make the argument that, you say we don't need that extra productivity. Well, maybe we do. Maybe we can make even more widgets, even more automobiles, and sell them for cheaper, because you have that 8 hours you said there, because you're getting more productivity per hour. Well, you keep that extra 8 hours in place. That's even more productivity. That's even more things sold, so they can lower the prices, and that's pretty good for consumers overall. And that can also kind of keep a check on inflation overall as well. I just don't think, like, when I look at a 40-hour work week, I don't think that it's that burdensome for individuals to work 40 hours. I just don't. I would much rather, and it should be up to the companies, like you said, but I would much rather that extra productivity go into more productivity for the business, more products and services. They can sell it at a lower price, and that benefits the economy overall. Now, this could change, though, because, like you said, we have labor shortages, and maybe businesses decide that they're going to, okay, well, just make you work 32 hours a week, because we really want to get you to work here, because that other businesses is doing the same thing. I would much rather it be done by competition through businesses than to just kind of say all of a sudden, well, we're more productive, let's just force this down the company's throat now.
So there are two arguments, and I want to flesh those out a little bit, and then we can let you go. And I appreciate your time. 32-hour work week, you said not or a 40-hour work week, you said not burdensome. And I very strongly disagree with that. Actually, I think that obviously everything is relative. People used to work, and people in the UAW, work 70-hour work weeks and stuff like that, and people today work 70-hour work weeks, and to an extent the 40-hour work week is actually something of is a product of a bygone era that we don't have anymore for very many people. But even for the folks that do just have the 9-to-5 grind, you get up and you have to drive 30 minutes to work, 45 minutes to work. Some people in cities who they can't drive, or they have to commute, and so some of them can have an hour commute. And I know some people on the Arsenal actually that drive an hour and a half to get here, which is insane. But some people do it. So you drive 30 minutes, hour and a half, and then you work your 8 hours. You have to take 30 minutes to an hour for lunch that you don't get paid for by and large, and then you drive another 30 minutes to an hour and a half to get home. You can really, really easily, and then you got to get ready. You got to get ready for work. And then when you get home, you got to decompress. And, I don't want to do very much immediately after I get off of work. And so you really do, in an 8-hour workday, lose the whole day, basically. You don't have any time to do anything after work. And then, you've got the 5 days that you work the whole week during this 8-hour workday, where you're losing basically all of every single one of those 5 days. And then the next day you're just beat. And then the day after that, you're dreading going back to work. So I think a 40-hour work week is actually, it's obviously relative, and a lot of people have it worse off, but in a society where we can have a shorter work week, absolutely, I think it's a conversation we should be having.
Well, and there are different conversations you can have in productivity. A lot more people are working remotely because of the things you suggested. Or, I know some people that work more hours 3 days a week instead of working the 8 hour 5 days a week. And that's better. I'm not necessarily against any of that, but I also don't think, you were talking about how some of it's hard for some people. I mean, I'm not going to deny that life and working hard is hard for some people, but overall, in terms of the economy, I just don't really think a 40-hour work week, when you ask every average person, really sees it as that much of a burden. And in some businesses, if they could work an extra 8 hours and that increases the productivity of the business, like I said, where they can sell more products and services at lower prices, which is good for consumers, which is good for the economy and everyone else, I tend to think that that could be better. But and I also think it depends on the individual business and the individual environment.
Yeah, well, I mean, and then to an extent, the argument is based on it being burdensome, but then another big part of it is based on the fact that we can, and why shouldn't we, and it wouldn't actually be that burdensome on the companies, because when we talk about like executive pay, it wouldn't be burdensome for them to only have 100 times the salary of their median worker, but they have 300 times the median salary of their worker, right? And so, we talk about whether or not it's burdensome is really not even the operative question. The question is, can we afford it, and would it be good for society, right?
Yeah, and I'm just not necessarily convinced. You talk about can you afford it? That depends on the business. I guess I'm just not necessarily convinced that transforming our whole economy to a 32-hour work week would be better for society. I guess I'm just not convinced of that.
And then the kind of really the meat of the thing, I guess you've kind of been like wavering a little wishy-washy on the specific points of the contracts that the UAWs reached with the big three. Maybe they're good, maybe they're not. I don't know. I'm not totally sure. But you don't like that the workers had a say, right? You're kind of like ideologically opposed to that?
I mean, part of it is that I just don't like the idea, one, of forcing all workers to pay union dues. We've talked about that before. But when you talk about the workers have a say, it's sort of the collective workers, which is really just under the UAW, and the UAW has a say. I tend to believe in more of a work environment where individual workers maybe have a say, because they're valuable to the company as an individual, and they can come into their boss and say, I deserve a raise, instead of this.
That is like a little bit silly, don't you?
I don't think so. I really don't, because
you think that the average production worker at a big three at a big three plant could get a better deal for himself, negotiating for himself, than the UAW got for everybody?
Yeah, I think in certain cases, yes, I do. I tend to believe that if they are very valuable to the company. Yeah. And the main reason I point this out is you pointed out how, we live in Huntsville, Toyota Mazda plant, not unionized. The workers do pretty well there. Our economy in Huntsville does pretty well there. And this is all done without unionization. And the cost of living is lower here. So that's kind of where I come from on a lot of this. I just think it's a better system without sort of the collective bargaining, collectivization. I think the market does a better job at competing for workers if it's allowed to really do that, in terms of competition for workers. The same way they have to compete for consumers, eventually they have to compete for workers. And I think if that system was really put in place, I think that would be better for the overall economy.
But that's not what we see, though. Is that, we don't see in any industry a non-union company paying more or giving better benefits to its employees than a union company in the same industry. It's like, I don't think I've ever heard of that in the 5 years that I've been a union activist.
Well, you talked about, but the companies are doing better. The reason why you got you got to the point in 2007, 2008 is because they had to compete with those non-union companies. And that's what put them in a situation where it's like, oh, is this really good for the company? And then you looked at a lot of businesses going overseas. I mean, part of that was because they had to compete or they had to go. So the company existing and being more productive, I think, is better for the economy as a whole. Otherwise, these companies are just like, forget it, I'm going to leave the country, or forget it, I'm going to move this company south because these union demands are just too much. I can't keep up with it.
Well, I mean, that's not the. I don't think that it was actually the union stuff that caused the crash of the auto industry in 2008. It was like the bad financial decisions of the and production decisions of the companies. I think that's kind of generally the consensus there, and that's not something that I think, unfortunately, since the Treaty of Detroit, there's not really been any push by any union to, and this contract really kind of broke the seal on that. They started doing it a little bit, but since the Treaty of Detroit, all production decisions and decisions on like what to produce and where and how and why and how much, that's all been the purview, and how much to pay executives, non-union staff, and how much to give to shareholders. All of this is totally within the purview of the management. They don't ask that's not anywhere in the union contract that they have to ask for any of that. And so the union's not asked to make all these kind of financial decisions and investment decisions. It's the companies that do that, and the companies that, make themselves go bankrupt because of it.
Okay. I mean, I would just have to disagree. I think the union contracts paying people not to work, the amount of the labor costs that were involved in GM and the big three, I think that was a big part of
paying
what
people not
put
to
them
work.
in that
What
situation.
What are you referring to there?
The pensions, people that were retired, but they were still getting
security.
pensions.
You don't
Yeah.
think folks should have a pension?
No, I think a 401k is a fine system.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that's why a lot of companies are going to that, and 401k and private in retirement, than having the companies just pay full pensions for 20 years in some cases when those employees are no longer working for them.
Well, the 401k, I mean, the reason that they do that is because it's less costly for the company. It's obviously like a worse deal for the employee. You don't, it's obviously a worse deal for the employee. You don't get as much for a 401k, and so it's like a lot of people have actually had to delay retirement because of the 401k kind of scam, in my view.
Okay, but it's like you said, it's what's good for the company. It keeps the company a lot more profitable and productive. Instead of, I mean, that is a huge cost on some of these companies to have to pay retirement pensions, sometimes 20 years. I mean, that's a big cost. That makes it very hard for that company to invest in other areas.
Well, I mean, they're paying pensions right now, and Ford has, and all of these companies actually, I think, but Ford in particular said we're in a golden era. They've said these on shareholder calls. They've never, literally in the history of the company, they've never had more profits at all of these companies, and they're paying pensions right now.
Yeah, I know. I mean, how long will those profits last, you think?
How long will they last? I mean, that's a difficult question to answer. A lot of it is kind of, a lot of that is going to be driven in part by market trends and in other parts by investment decisions by the companies. But I think, with this, with the UAW having some amount of say in the investment decisions, I think it's going to be good for the companies to actually be producing more and investing more in actually creating product, and getting more product out to market, as opposed to sending that to people who don't work. And by that, I don't mean people who worked for 30 years and are earning a pension. By that, I mean people who own stocks. People who don't work. People who own stocks. Those are kind of synonymous.
Gotcha. So I mean, your basic argument then is that the money the money, too much of the profits are just going to the top and not going to the workers, and you're kind of shifting the cost share. Because you talk about profits, I mean, you can talk about real numbers and you can talk about profit margins, but man, you look at a that can go away real quick with some of these big companies. It only takes a couple of years, and all of a sudden they're losing money.
Mm-hmm. And so going back to the collective bargaining, that you don't like that. You said you don't like it because you prefer the market, and I'm not clear as to why you don't view unions as part of the market. Just because the individual workers have decided that they want to. That they want to be a part of a union, that they would prefer to negotiate collectively as opposed to individually, and they want to have a say over the working conditions and wages and benefits and all of that. But I mean, that seems to me to be part of the market.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a part of. I do think it's a part of human nature, in terms of. Yes, people will kind of gather themselves in groups to kind of try to bargain. But in terms of the market, I just think the boss should say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to deal with you as a union. I'll deal with individual employees, or won't do that at all. I'll fire you if I want to, instead of having to do it as like this sort of collective of, okay, now the workers are now this union. I just don't look at it that way. The workers are groups of individuals, and some of those individuals do well. Some of those individuals do not do well. And maybe it's better for them as individuals to negotiate. And you said that doesn't seem realistic to you. That seems kind of silly. And that's kind of where we disagree. I'm just not sure you need a union for employees to do well, and for an economy to do well, and for a community to do well. And we see that this is why the economy is expanding in a lot of the southern states. It's one of the reasons.
Well, I mean, the economy is expanding in a certain extent, but there have been a lot of studies actually coming out recently, and there's another one that we're expecting to drop here in the next couple of months that detail that a lot of these southern manufacturing jobs are really, really there's a lot of issues with them that are not present in the union manufacturing jobs, that I think would be addressed by workers having more of a voice, and workers having more power. And that's something, and that position that the employer just says, well, I'm not, screw you, I'm not going to bargain with you as a union, I'll bargain with you individually. I mean, that was the position of all of these companies at the beginning of when the UAW was formed. The only reason that they did is because they had to have workers. They couldn't make a profit without the people who were part of the union.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Although I don't know if that would be the case now. Frankly, I think they'd be able to find.
I do not think so. They can't find workers now. They can't find workers now to fill jobs. Even in union plants, they're having issues. And I know that at non-union plants, they're having issues. But they're having manufacturing jobs across the board are having difficulty just filling open positions. Imagine firing 140,000 production workers and thinking that you're going to be able to get 140,000 replacements. Like, that would be, there's no way. That's impossible.
Yeah, and I understand your point. I guess my point overall is, you're talking about the labor shortage. I would much rather, instead of doing this negotiation where the union strikes and says, we're just not going to work, I would much rather a situation where, okay, these individuals are like, look, we're just not going to work for this company anymore. We're going to go work somewhere else. And that forces the company to pay more. That forces the company to do better. I would much rather. But you
understand how that's less effective, right?
I don't know if it is less effective.
Of course, we just talked about how Toyota workers make less than they make less than UAW workers and have fewer benefits and all of this kind of stuff. Of course, it's less effective. It's like literally, actually, provably, measurably been proven less effective.
Well, the cost of living is less here, though. So, like, if the cost of living was a lot more here.
Ford's biggest plant, the most profitable plant for Ford, is in Kentucky. They've got like 20,000 workers in Kentucky, the Kentucky truck plant that went on strike. They were one of the plants that went on strike. Like a lot of the big three, actually, they do have places in the South that are making the same.
Yeah, I know. I just think overall, it's just better for the economy to do it the way we have to do it, where like in Huntsville, you have a non-union thing and you say, well, they're paid less. I mean, I know people that work there and they're very happy. And like I said, I think the cost of living in terms of Kentucky, I guess I'd have to look at that area, but I think the cost of living is better. I think the companies are run better. I think the products that they offer are better. I mean, that's just what I think. Like you look at Toyota Mazda, I talked about how much I love their products. And it's because they're not forced into these situations by the unions.
Well, Yaffee, I'd have a quick question. So the raises that Toyota just got, do you think that was open market forces, or do you think the unions had something to do with that?
It might be a combination. It might be that they're, and I totally get what you guys are saying, that they might be a little bit afraid that they don't want their company to unionize, so they're going to offer better benefits and better pay because they don't want that. They don't want them to unionize. But I also do think part of it, and you guys mentioned that they have already given raises. I think that part of it is, frankly, they're trying to find workers because there is a tight labor market right now. And I would much rather a more productive economy with a tight labor market force higher wages than through collective bargaining and strikes that we have seen with the unions.
Just super quick, and this is not scientific, but Googling cost of living in Kentucky versus Alabama. First one says Alabama is 11% more expensive than Kentucky. The cost of living in Birmingham is 1% higher than in Louisville, Kentucky. So those are some interesting stats there. So there we go.
Okay, I'd have to look at that more.
Yeah, that was I was kind of shocked. I'm not surprised, like 1% difference here or there. That doesn't, but the first result being 11% more expensive in Alabama than Kentucky, that kind of surprised me. But maybe, I don't know. But all right, well, Yaffee, I appreciate it. I am still not convinced that workers don't deserve a say in their lives, but you've made a valiant effort.
All right, thanks. I appreciate it.
All right,
appreciate it.
All right, folks. So there we go. Always enjoy a good conversation with folks who disagree. If you disagree and you agree with, let me know what I missed in Yaffee's argument if you would like. 844-899-8857. 844-899-TVLR if you want to get in on the show. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Here's another... Wait, I wish I had checked the messages. Wait, I thought he was arguing for us to care more about the country and the company. Aren't those collective concerns? Oh, jeez, man, I should have checked the text messages. That would have been a good question. The country and the company are very much collective concerns. Those are not individual concerns. That's a good point. So I've got at least one more segment that I wanted to get to. And that's with the SAG-AFTRA strike. 160,000 actors are still on strike at some of the big media companies. And they gave and SAG gave some guidance for Halloween that said basically, look, don't dress as characters from struck products if you're a member of SAG-AFTRA. We talked about this early in October. I relayed that information to people because I had some questions about is SAG asking nobody to dress as a character from a struck product, and that was not the case. It was just members of SAG-AFTRA. They were asking not to dress as characters from struck products. And so that seems like a super reasonable request, super easy request to make if you're an actor on strike, especially if you are one of the higher paid, really well-off actors. You would think that would be a super, super easy thing to do. And then you would think further that if you were gonna dress as a character from a Struck product, you would at least not flaunt it on social media. That's kind of what I would imagine. If you were one of these wealthy, super wealthy actors or actresses, you would be willing to abide by that because the union thinks that's going to help them in getting a contract. But that's not what Megan Fox decided to do. Megan Fox attended a Casamigos Halloween bash with her fiance Machine Gun Kelly. They dressed as Gogo Yabari and Beatrix Kiddo, respectively, from the 2003 film Kill Bill. And then she took a picture of that and posted it on her Instagram and tagged the union with, I think she had a winky face or something. So, really gross stuff from Megan Fox here. And Lisa Ann Walter, one of the actors on Abbott Elementary, the red-haired teacher. I'm forgetting her character's name. She's Italian in the thing. And she's on the negotiating committee, and she said, she tweeted about it. She said, "What a rebel. Keep posturing for stupid shit, pretty lady. Meanwhile, we'll be working 10 hours a day, unpaid, to get basic contract earners a fair deal." And so yeah, that's what happened over Halloween with Megan Fox. I mean, what a jerk. That's just kind of an insane thing to do. I do not understand that. Pittsburgh Dude asks, what's Machine Gun Kelly even known for other than having a stupid name? I only know about Machine Gun Kelly from him getting stomped in a rap battle with Eminem. That's the only thing I remember Machine Gun Kelly from. Do you remember that rap battle? The diss tracks that they released against each other? Ben?
I can't say I do, and honestly, I hadn't heard Megan Fox's name in quite a bit either. So I don't do a lot. I don't usually watch TV or cable or keep up with a lot of stuff. I mostly just read politics for fun, which is probably bizarre, but
I think that this
out of the loop.
I think that this is probably the most attention that Megan Fox has gotten since Transformers.
Yeah, that's literally the time. I was like, it's the Transformers girl. I know who that is.
So one of these tabloid news outlets collected some fan comments from Twitter. One saying, why is she being defiant to a group that's literally fighting for her to make a fair wage? That's a good point. Yes, girl, give it to your union trying to get better wages and benefits for lesser-known people than you, indeed.
And she's already cashed out, man. No doubt Megan Fox has got some bills.
Dude,
she's got some money.
Never got to work a day in her life again if she doesn't want to.
No chill, come on.
Yeah, it's just bonkers. I can't imagine that. I can't imagine being like that kind of person. But that's what she did. But the updates are that the major studios made an offer to SAG-AFTRA yesterday, on Friday, November the 3rd, that they hope will end the 113-day strike. So we're not just tabloid reporting on gossip. We're also bringing you the latest on the contract negotiations.
And they're also fighting reality TV at the same time, because once we have real writers, they'll stop making as much reality TV. They'll actually make something that forms coherent sentences and all that stuff.
That'll be nice, won't it? So after that news broke that the producers had given SAG its latest offer, SAG released a statement saying that the negotiating committee will be meeting on Saturday morning, that's today, to prepare for across-the-table talks with the producers in the afternoon. So hopefully by the next show, we will have some good news. Hopefully the studios are coming to their senses and they're saying, we want to put an end to this and we're giving you everything that you're asking for. Or at least, meeting you in some kind of reasonable middle way. So we'll see what happens. We'll keep you updated. I know that if you want to learn more about SAG's position, they released a 3-hour webinar on where negotiations stand and what they're asking for. So you can find that online. Search, SAG-AFTRA bargaining webinar. You can find that. I didn't have time to listen to it and clip some stuff. If negotiations fall through this weekend, I might clip some for next weekend. So we'll see what happens there, but we will, of course, keep you up to date.
Trying to save some jobs from AI, it sounds like to me.
Yes, that's the biggest. That's really the big thing.
The hugest thing I think they need to be tackling right now.
Yeah, absolutely. That really is kind of the big thing is the AI stuff, and they're saying that they need these protections for they're like existentially threatening the industry of actors, and I think that's obviously the truth. So. All right, well that's it for us today, I think. Unless Ben, you had anything that you wanted to make sure that you had anything burning on your mind.
Hey, tune in next weekend.
Tune in next weekend. 32-hour live stream, Friday, 9:30 a.m. Central Time. TVLR.fm/strike fundraiser. Donate. Tell your friends. If you have any contacts with anybody in leadership of an international union or local union that they want to call in and talk to us, we're just going to be, it's not all, obviously. We could not fill 32 hours of content just about the UAW strike at Mack Trucks and the BCTGM strike at IFF in Memphis. So most of it, it's just going to be shooting the shit with people, talking about whatever the hell they're talking about. What are they up to, right?
And what's some of the guests? We got Sam Cedars, a big one, right?
We've got Sam Cedar lined up. We have David Griscom and Matt Leck lined up. Barry Eidlin, Kim Kelly, Bhaskar Sankara, Max Alvarez, Hayden Wright. We got a lot of folks already confirmed, but still a lot of time left to fill. And if y'all know anybody that,
I'm sure we'll be taking callers too.
Oh yeah, we'll be taking
most of the
callers.
time. So yeah, get your view in here.
And if you know anybody, especially like a big name person, tell them to reach out to us and we can get them in the schedule. Particularly if they are if they're a night owl, because the 1 to the 10 p.m. to like 4 a.m. slots are very hard to fill. So.
I was about to say I've done some 24-hour streams before, and it's at like 4 a.m. where the staff's kind of got that glaze in their eyes, and like we're trying to like figure out which room we're standing in.
Yeah.
That's when we need you guys that are work night shift to be like, hey, what's up?
Yes.
Start yelling. Start.
That would be great. I think Lee Baines is going to be coming on at some point. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. We're gonna have a lot of good people to talk to. So and maybe one of the things that I want to do, I want to get a more comfortable chair for the live stream. I want to get something. Maybe I'll bring a chair from home or something. Maybe a beanbag,
cushy.
And maybe I can get something like play a game. I don't know what kind of game I should play.
Games.
But I'll be thinking about that this week.
Labor-related games we talking?
No, just any kind of game.
I don't know.
Last time when we did this, I played Among Us with some people. But I don't think that's cool anymore. I think that's gone. So.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not cued in on that. Hey, I started playing Minecraft again, man.
I'm
a 30-something-year-old man, 34.
Every few years, I'll get on a Minecraft stint.
And it's like totally different too. All the people online, they're just like, "Yeah, this is the new generation." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't know you could do all that."
I saw that there was
an old person.
There was this video circulating around on Twitter of like 100 kids in Minecraft carrying Palestine flags because they couldn't go to a protest.
Yeah.
And so they were like marching on a server with like 100, each of them carrying a Palestine flag.
Well, when they outlaw certain types of speech in certain places.
Yeah, jeez. Yeah. Minecraft will be the bastion of free speech. All right, folks, we'll head on out. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Like the stream on the way out. Subscribe to the channel. When did they say this was? Friday, November 10th at 9:30 a.m. till Saturday, November 11th, 5:30 p.m. 32 hours. Friday, 9:30 a.m. November 10th. 32 hours live stream, raising money. Join us. See you then.